expectations. Brother Ralph is third, and he thinks there's more to come. The McLarens look off the pace again in fourth and fifth. But Renault are poised to strike as both their cars took a giant leap forward. It's Brazil. It's the Formula One World Championship. Sit back, open another Easter egg, and enjoy. Yes, I hope you've had a good Easter so far. The Williams team certainly have. Perry McCarthy and Damon Hill have stopped munching on their eggs to join me. And Damon, could we have reached the turning point of this season already?
I think we've started really the season, the main part of the season, because the track itself is a proper racetrack, and everyone's had a chance to fiddle with their cars. And now we're starting to see the two main protagonists coming to the fore for the third time in succession. So I think that we're starting to get to the meaty bit.
Ferrari second on the grid, Perry. Does this mean that maybe they've rushed that 2002 car a little?
Personally, I think they had no choice. They've got to give it a go now because I think, as shown in Malaysia, even though Rubens was leading, the 2001 car is beginning to get past its sell-by date.
Home hopes rest with David Coulthard. He's fourth on the grid, but he desperately needs some serious points.
He's going to need a little bit of luck, I think, today to actually get in on the action. You know, you can't ever rule anything out, but the car is unreliable. It's got reliability problems with the engine and other small things keep going wrong with it. And also in front of him, he's got two Williams BMWs and Michael Schumacher. So you know, he's going to be a lucky guy if he wins today.
Juan Pablo's on pole. It's hard not to like this bloke, isn't it? He's standing on the grid in Australia, and Patrick Head turns around and says, "Aren't you supposed to be in the car?" And he goes, "Yeah, I'm supposed to be in the car." That's a minute before they set off. He's a maverick, but he's a fast driver too.
He's just so cool. It's just nothing seems to faze him. It all comes so naturally. He knows what he wants. He's fiercely determined. And as we saw from the very moment of his arrival last year, he's identified Michael Schumacher as being the guy that he needs to put the finger on and make sure that Michael knows that Juan isn't intimidated. So from the very first off, which was here, this race last year, we saw Juan Pablo Montoya taking on the established superstar of Formula One, Michael Schumacher, and he's kept that pressure up. So Michael Schumacher knows exactly who to expect a challenge from.
Everybody expecting another first corner incident. Michael says maybe not. Juan says, so what? You know, you have to do something really bad to get done here.
Yeah, I don't think Montoya is worried in the slightest about any kind of penalty or new penalty system at all. You know, he views it that if you do something daft, then he said it yesterday, if you do something daft, then fair enough, but he doesn't expect to do that. And he's certainly not going to give any ground at all, even in intimation, to Michael Schumacher about what he's going to do.
I don't think it's going to come to it anyway, to be quite honest, because we've seen in the last two Grand Prix that Williams BMW is like a catapult off the start, and with Juan now in pole position, I just don't think Michael will be alongside him. I think, if anything, if we're going to see any kind of incident, it's going to be between the two Schumacher brothers, because with the power of the BMW coming off the grid, with Ralf Schumacher in third, he'll probably catch Michael, who's being edged outside. Then it's going to be a fight between them for the inside. There you go. How about that for a long shot?
We don't have long to find out, and you're keen on long shots, I know that. Now, we will, of course, concentrate on the race shortly, but if you were with us for warm-up, you will have seen a terrifying incident, and we just need to bring you right up to date with that. Starting with the man whose original crash caused the whole thing, Enrique Bernoldi.
I went off, I just touched the curb a little bit too much, and I got a wheel spin, and I spun. There's not much area to go off. My car was a little bit on the side of the track, and Heidfeld came really quickly. I was going out of my car because my car was in fire, and he avoided my car, but he hit the medical car.
I just saw it very late. There were no yellow flags in the first chicane, and actually I had Michael's Ferrari in front, which also took a bit of the view down, so I didn't see anything. Just when at the same moment as I see the crash, I hear my team telling me red flag, but it was too late, obviously.
The boy in the car that crashed was not moving. We thought he could be unconscious. The car was rapidly gaining what should we say, intensity with regard to the fire, so we went to get him out.
And was there a big shock when Nick Heidfeld's car hit the door?
Not really, no. I was already out of the car, so I didn't notice it. Alex had opened the door, but wasn't yet ready to get out. He was undoing his belts, and Heidfeld just sort of nipped past, and part of the car just tore off the bottom of our door.
We were all amazed at how quickly your car was on the crash site.
Well, that's because if you see somebody on fire and appears to be unconscious, you need to be there within 2 or 3 minutes.
Very impressive.
Well, you've seen the incident in slow motion. You've heard what the main players had to say. Can you apportion blame on the evidence of what you've seen?
No, I think that everyone was right to be. I mean, the safety car was right to go out very quickly. The car's on fire. It could have been a serious accident. Get there as soon as possible. They parked themselves in front of the stricken car, so they were protected by the car itself. And when you're coming off a corner, even though that's quite a slow corner, when you're coming off one of those corners, turn 2, actually, there, you know, it's very difficult to change your line completely like that. I mean, you could argue that Nick Heidfeld was maybe not paying attention a little bit to think what was going on, but then he did take avoiding action, and it's just one of those, you know, a knock-on effect, I think, rather than anyone doing anything wrong. And
thankfully, no one hurt. Now, so far this season, we've had 2 starts and 2 first corner incidents. But the drivers might be a little more careful this time round as a result of a new and fairly draconian law that comes into effect today. Bruce Jones reports.
In response to first corner accidents at the first 2 Grand Prix of 2002, the FIA has got tough. Henceforth, any driver who is adjudged to have caused an avoidable accident will be punished, not with a drive-through penalty, as endured by Juan Pablo Montoya 2 weeks ago in the Malaysian Grand Prix, but with a penalty held over to the following race. Now, should this offending driver qualify on pole position next time out, they won't start from the front of the grid, but they'll start from here, all the way back in 11th place. Yes, any driver who offends will be pushed back 10 places down the grid. And rest assured, later this spring, when the drivers assemble on the grid for the Austrian Grand Prix, they'll be doing everything they can to make sure they do not offend, because the next race on the calendar is at Monaco, a circuit famous for a complete lack of overtaking possibilities. There's been a rule passed by the FIA that if you're deemed to have caused an accident in their eyes, you get put back 10 places on the grid for the next race. Do you think that's like a double whammy?
I think it's quite appropriate when you say a rule has been passed, you know, it's as if it's been passed through the system and come out someone's arse. I don't really understand the rule, and it would be, in not understanding it, not having spoken to anyone from the FIA to explain it to me, it's probably unfair of me to make a comment other than I don't understand why that number.
We've never really had a problem with the punishments. We've had a problem with the consistency of the rulings. That's really the area where I feel we probably need to improve more than finding new ways to punish people.
I don't think it's a good rule. Not just because I'm going to go around knocking everyone off, but you know, it's a very difficult one to judge. Accidents. You know, we've had problems judging accidents all year and all last year. So, I mean, coming to the decision is going to be very difficult. And 10 places. I mean, if you cause an accident in one race, you should be penalised for that race, not following on to the next race. It's just a very strange system.
Damon, don't dip into Coulthard's vocabulary here, but what do you think of this ruling?
Well, I think that you know, the worst thing you can do is ask drivers what they think about penalties, because they're never going to agree about penalties. But I'm an ex-driver, so you can ask me. And I think that having a penalty that doesn't relate to the race you're actually in is never going to work, because racing drivers never think beyond the next corner. And if they're in a tangle, they're going to do everything they can to get through that corner and overtake someone and use all the methods they can think of. And it's not going to deter them if they think they're going to end up. There's a chance they might finish up 10 places back on the grid in the next race.
Well, it hasn't done him much good, but Rubens Barrichello lives just a few yards from the circuit. So we asked the local hero to take us round a lap of his hometown track.
Hi, I'm Rubens Barrichello. I'm going to take you for a lap in Interlagos. So we arrived here at turn 1 at around 315 kilometers an hour. It's a tricky braking because it's an overtaking point. The rear of the car is always very nervous, so you got to be careful on the braking. It's also a little bit of a camber on the corner, so it feels dodgy, but it's a fun corner to do. You got to live this corner. You may lose some time into 1 just to gain time into 2, because it's almost like a flat corner, a little bit bumpy. But the exit, the speed that you have at the exit, is the one that you're going to take for the whole the whole straight after turn 3. Turn 3 is easy flat, so you're gonna arrive at turn 4 depending on the speed at turn 2. Very important, turn 1 and 2. Turn 4 is a corner that you always tell yourself why I was so slow, and then you try faster and you go actually slower. It is a corner that you need to be very, very clear. You cannot touch a lot of the curbs and so on, so you gotta be careful of that. Very bumpy on the exit, easy flat on 5. Not such a drama there, just be careful with the bumps. You arrive into turn 6, one of the most exciting turns at the circuit, because you have a double apex, so you don't see the exit of the corner into 7, so make it very, very tricky, but by knowing the circuit, you just nail the throttle exiting 6, and the exit at 7, it's no need to watch hard. So braking at 8, depending pretty much on the speed at 6 and 7, you have a bit of a problem with the rear. So you have to use the maximum curbs into 8, and then you just put the throttle down, and you just have you just have Michael on the other side, and so exit in turn 8. Spun off? Yeah, I spun off at 8 now. So you have the exit of turn 8 where you have is he watching me, because I know the trick is here, so I hope he's not. Okay, we can go. You use the curbs at turn 8 a lot. Then turn 9 is like a lot of camber. You just use the camber of the corner. It is a very, very slow corner anyway. It's a second gear. Accelerating into the curva do bico de pato. That's how we call it. It's just like a very tight one. It's like 60 kilometers an hour, very, very slow. Traction is very important here. Then you go into 11, which is a downhill, and you have a corner which has a lot of bumps, can make it a very oversteery, so a corner to pay attention. 12, probably one of the most important corners again, because the speed here determines the speed for the whole straight. So in here you have the tribune, and you just say hello to everyone. So that's a lap with me.
Rubens Barrichello and the ever-playful Michael Schumacher. Now, a quick reminder then of how qualifying went yesterday. Ben Edwards and John Watson were in the commentary box.
Channel coverage here on Digital F1. I'm Ben Edwards with John Watson, and today the Williams versus Ferrari battle will continue pretty much where they left off in Malaysia 2 weeks ago.
And really it's a battle of Ferrari and Williams, but in fact it's a battle about Ferrari against Williams and Michelin, because it is the combination of the Williams chassis, the BMW engine, and those Michelin tyres that has seen Michael Schumacher and Ferrari and their Bridgestone tyres really having to do something very special. First of all, for Michael Schumacher to get onto the front row of the grid alongside Montoya. But for this 71-lap Grand Prix this afternoon, well, if Schumacher is going to take that #1 slot on the podium, you're going to see a remarkable drive and a remarkable team effort, because believe me, with Williams, Montoya and Ralf Schumacher, the odds are stacked against Schumacher and Ferrari. That's Michael.
Well, absolutely, but we do know that Michael's able to pull those sort of performances out, so we always are going to have a battle when he's up front. Looking at the air temperature at the moment, you can see 31 degrees C and track temperature 38 degrees C. A little bit of light cloud around, similar to the temperatures we saw for qualifying yesterday, although the track temperature actually came up to about as high as 45 degrees Celsius, and that seemed to certainly help the Michelin users. There, the points at the moment. Schumacher, Michael with a 2-point advantage over Juan Pablo Montoya. Ralf Schumacher with the win in Malaysia on 10 points. Kimi Raikkonen on just 4, ahead of Irvine and Jenson Button, who drove so well in Malaysia 2 weeks ago. But it is the battle between the top 3 that we'll be watching.
I'm just looking around in a third stunning day here in Interlagos. So that high cloud band, the first time we've seen that much cloud drift over the circuit. But the humidity was very low, only 37%. Let's hope that the projection of rain showers through the afternoon at some point, particularly shortly, well, middle section of the Grand Prix, is not going to happen. I think with the cloud base that we have and the sky we have, we're going to have a fantastic Grand Prix. 71 laps of real Formula One battling with strategy and pit stops very much a part of the afternoon race.
Yes, I think a lot of it will come down to strategy and how heavy to start the race and how many pit stops to make, and we'll take a look at that in more detail. But just take a look at the moment at the fans enjoying the sunshine and this wonderful weather at Interlagos. We're just a little way south of Sao Paulo city centre, although the city itself does spread its way right down to this part of the country. And well, a great turnout of fans. The drums are beating, the whistles are blowing. There's always so much noise associated with the enthusiasm of the Brazilian fans.
And in particular, reflecting back, I know it's always not the right thing to do, but the days of Emerson Fittipaldi, he had a relation who was into black magic, Macumba. And at one Grand Prix, in fact it was the Spanish Grand Prix in Barcelona, that Macumba worked for Emerson Fittipaldi. Well, you still have that sense here in Brazil with Rubens Barrichello, Enrique Benoldi and Felipe Massa, that there may be a little black magic that might help those three Brazilian drivers here this afternoon.
Well, do you think it works with other Latin drivers, John? Will it work for Juan Pablo Montoya? I mean, this is about as close as he gets to a home race, isn't it?
Well, I think he's probably in a strong enough position right now not to need any outside assistance. On pole position, really the man who is looking to take this championship away from his own teammate, Ralf Schumacher, and, of course, the championship leader, Michael Schumacher himself.
Accident, and I just wonder what your reaction to that is, Perry McCarthy.
Well, I'm pleased for Nick, but I'm more interested in why he's been absolved, because if he's been absolved from that, then for me that means there might have been a failure further down the line, i.e. was at the previous marshal's post were the correct flags shown, or did his telemetry correctly register inside the cockpit that he had the right warning light on, or, you know, why has it suddenly gone, Nick, you're okay, we believe you, you're spot on, son. You know, I mean, I'm not being facetious, it was a very fortunate thing that one of three drivers weren't hurt in that. There was Benoldi standing in the arrows, there was Nick Heidfeld himself, and of course there was Alex driving the medical car. So it's, thank God, the most important thing is that everybody's okay. But why is he now adjudged to be non-guilty?
So what's the fact that he ploughed into a stationary car and a medical car down to a failure on the part of the stewarding?
You'd have to say that Perry's probably hit on something there, which is that, you know, if he can't avoid a car that's crashed on the exit of the second turn when he's arrived at turn one, then it implies that he didn't actually know it was there. And even if he did know it was there, he shouldn't be able to take some sort of avoiding action, which he did. It was only unfortunate that the guy opened the door at the last minute. I think it's a culmination of events that it just happened at that particular moment, and I don't think anyone particularly was to blame. You may find that there should have been yellow flags, but then they would have had to have been much faster than is physically possible to put out, and it's a very close thing. I mean, we could have lost Sid Watkins or even the driver of the safety car there, which would have been much worse than it is currently. It's, you know, everyone's okay, but anyway. You always have to look. I mean, we live in a kind of world nowadays where we're looking for blame the whole time, and someone, Perry's right, you know, if Nick's not to blame, then someone must be.
All right, Heidfeld's accident dominates our cursory look at the top 10 of the grid. Let's have a look at the second 10 runners and see if we can spot anybody who might promote themselves when the race actually starts. Pedro de la Rosa, second in warm-up. That was an incredible achievement for a Jaguar that's been suffering, to say the least.
Yes, I mean, even if they were running on low fuel and new tyres, then it's still hopeful. But, you know, to put it in perspective, the warm-up doesn't show anything. There's no reason for anyone to comply to any kind of rules or other than those sort of very loose rules about whether it's a chance to test your car for the race. Basically, it's not qualifying, and generally people like to run the car with a lot of fuel on to see how the car's going to behave in the race when it's heavier, and it's very easy to look great in warm-up if you're not running a lot of fuel. And I think we can assume that Pedro de la Rosa was not running a lot of fuel. He certainly wasn't running as much as those around him or those behind him.
But if he was doing that, do you think that could be a preliminary test for maybe a multi-stop strategy?
You're determined to get this one.
I am actually. I really
am.
It's
Three-stop strategy, or you're going to be a very upset young man.
Yeah, well, I think why not take the risk? You know, because they're quite a way down. They've had a pretty awful season so far. So hell, roll the dice. You know. It's like they've got the Michelin tyres. There's a lot of people who expect the Michelin tyres to be better as the race goes on. Take a roll.
Now, a reminder that John Watson and Ben Edwards are on the Super Channel and that all of the interactive options are now available to you. But here on Master Channel, we have Peter Windsor, whose exclusive interviews are the quickest in the business. I had to say that because he writes this part of the script. Now, Peter, not long to go until the race. What's the hot gossip?
Well, it's a gorgeous Easter Sunday here, as you can see. Packed grandstands, absolutely full. I think it's always quite interesting to see what the drivers get up to in that period between the warm-up and the race. Kimi Räikkönen slept for about 40 minutes, I gather, and the Williams garage girls had an unusual request from the BAR garage girls. Did they have any shampoo? Because Mr. Jacques Villeneuve wanted to shampoo his hair before the race. So I wonder if Perry and Damon have got any input on that particular one. But talking about the start, it's a great first corner here, one of the most dramatic in Grand Prix racing. We've got the 3 chargers there. Don't forget Juan Pablo Montoya, although he's on the pole, is on the dirty side of the grid, so he's going to have less grip off the line. And if Michael Schumacher's alongside him going into that first corner, well, I'll probably leave it to you then. But it's interesting that Juan Pablo, in every interview, has been saying, well, you only get penalised if you do something stupid, which actually I think is Montoya speak for, whatever I do, it won't be stupid, so don't penalise me.
Thanks for the shampoo question, Peter, but Perry has no idea what shampoo is. Now, I expect well, it's obvious, and I just had to do it. I expect the Easter Bunny brought you a couple of nice chocolate eggs and not much more. Well, we can do better than that. The prize for our competition this season is simply unbelievable, and you're looking at it right now. Yes, the grand winner will win a Jaguar R3, the very chassis that Eddie...
According to the stewards, there was quite a long discussion about it, I think, but they have not given him any penalty. So Nick Heidfeld can draw a sigh of relief perhaps and get on with the business. Now, remember, good race this last year for Nick. He started in the same position he does today, in fact, in 9th place. Had his best ever result, finishing in 3rd place in that dry start but wet finishing race, a race of changing fortunes throughout. A race that wasn't particularly good, I'm afraid, for Jenson Button. They struggled last year when it was Bennett and Renault, but this year, I have to say, Renault have leaped up the grid. Very interesting. They've gained, well, Jenson himself has gained 2.6 seconds on what his qualifying time was here last year when he was driving for what basically is the same team. So a huge jump in terms of performance for Renault. Just looking at a bit of work, final preparations going on to Jenson Button's car. Jarno Trulli slightly out-qualifying him when it came to the official session yesterday, but really very little to choose between the Englishman and his experienced Italian teammate.
And really a transformation, I think, again, like Toyota being the surprise of the 2002 field. The progress that the Renault team has made has also been a huge surprise, and in particular here in Brazil, the team threatening to put McLaren back down, not to the 3rd team, but to 4th team. And the difference between the 2 Renaults and the 2 McLarens, really, you're talking about little more than a 10th and a bit of a second. And I think that will send out warning signals, not just to the Woking team, but also those based down in Wantage and in Maranello.
That's right, yes. It certainly looks as though Renault are going to be a major factor. Let's take a look at the previous winners here at this track, and out of this list of winners from the last 10 years, only 2 of these drivers did not go on to win the World Championship the very same year. Those 2 were Ayrton Senna in 1993, the year Prost went off in this race but went on to win the championship, and Coulthard last year, beating Michael Schumacher on the day, but of course it was Michael who came through to take the title in the end. But every other year, the winner at this race has gone on to take the title.
Onboard camera feed, which shows you the best possible view from a race.
Making preparations to get into the car. Remember, what we'll see is them coming out onto the track to do a reconnaissance lap or 2, come back in possibly, or then bring the car onto the grid for the final preparations to the race start.
Well, we did see in that morning warm-up session Montoya jump into the spare car. There appeared to be a problem with the spare car. Montoya hung around in the garage for quite some time, then jumped back into his race car before then getting back into the spare car for the final moments of that warm-up session. So maybe some concern about the performance or the reliability of that spare car, but Montoya will be in his race car as Norbert Haug of Mercedes-Benz.
Who's he on the phone to then?
Well, I don't know. I know he gave me his phone number and said if ever anyone any information, just give us a call. Well, I don't know who Norbert's on the phone with now, but no doubt it'll be a member of the Mercedes-Benz family somewhere around the world.
Maybe he's on to the weather forecasters just to find out whether there's any likelihood of rain in the area. I don't think there is. It's all looking very bright and looking like we're in ideal conditions for this afternoon's event. And there is the man who won last time out, of course, Ralf Schumacher. He starts on the second row this time. In fact, he started on the second row every race this year so far. And, well, I'm sure that he'll be hoping that Montoya and his brother get up to the same sort of tricks they did last time, because it certainly allowed him through to take the victory.
His very best, and you can see he's aching to get up there and mix it. Well, he's up there definitely, and in with a shout for this race.
Jaguar, second in the warm-up. I mean, that's almost a trophy for them, isn't it, after the season they've had so far?
Well, we spoke about this. I mean, it doesn't really mean anything, the warm-up, you know, the final. Because there's Pedro de la Rosa, lovely chap, and very, very dedicated to his job and doing a fine job, actually, out-qualifying Eddie.
You both know Eddie. What's Eddie thinking about the fact that this bloke's out-qualified him by 2 places?
Well, I still think Eddie's had enough of the kind of negative questioning and what have you, and I think he's starting to feel the stress. I mean, he's certainly not coming out with too many of his observations, shall I say, as many as he used to, and I think he's starting to realise that everyone's expecting him to do a lot for his bucks that he's getting paid.
I don't know about Night of the Long Knives. It's been about 2 hours of the Long Knives at BAR. I wonder whether there'll be any immediate improvement in their fortunes.
I think it's a lot to expect an immediate improvement. They've shed about 50 staff, I think, and the most notable of those is their technical director, or their designer anyway, Malcolm Osler.
But Dave Richards, Perry, is a really good organiser. I mean, he's a very successful man in his own right. He's turned his own teams rallying around to be world champion winners, and I think he's looking for new places to conquer. And I honestly think that he's the right man to be in that team to make it work. I think that they obviously need a lot more than just some shampoo. And Dave Richards is, is going to be able to bring a lot more to the team than a little bit of trimmings here and there.
I agree with you on that, but I mean, how long do you reckon it can be? Because they've got to bring in other people, and there's a lot of things they've got to do before it actually does make an impact. You know, any trim and any new acquisitions they might have.
He started the job, and he's identified that there are certain people in there who are maybe elevated beyond their abilities. Or that the organisation is top heavy, and he started to trim it, and he's making it more efficient. He talked about efficiency, and he's talked about I know that he idolises the way that the McLaren team is run. You know, he's come out and said in the past that he thought that Ron Dennis and McLaren are the only team in Formula One who are managed and run correctly. You know, we're looking at Adrian Newey, who is the brains, and he looks like it too, doesn't he? He looks like some sort of professor. Brilliant designer. And so Dave Richards is modelling, I think will be modelling the British American racing team on McLaren. Now that was Montoya talking to his engineer, asking.
Once you've done your lap through the pit, so just do a lap now. Decide whether you want to change the wing level, come back through the pit, and then do a start.
Excuse me for being naive here, but why are they talking amongst the radio when he's only just left the pit? Why didn't they tell him before he got in the car and turned it off?
It's just simply the only way you can communicate. I mean, everyone's got radios. Even the mechanics in the garage will talk over the radio because there's so many other distractions and noises that go on. It's impossible to make yourself heard. So
it's also a question of prioritising things. One, getting his balaclava on, putting his earplugs in, putting the crash helmet on, getting strapped in the car. There might be a couple of 3 minutes, 4 minutes past between his last point of contact to getting in the car. So then you start communicating on radio. It can just save a bit of time.
I mean, Montoya there was asking whether it was all right to do a practice start. He's still relatively inexperienced in terms of running in a Formula One car, and he has in the past ignored certain basics like cooling your brakes off, and we've heard regularly recently, cool your brakes every time he comes in. He's not interested in the machinery end of this. He just wants to get his his butt up in front of Michael Schumacher.
He doesn't steer, but so it's the action that when the front comes striking like look at that. Gonna do a stop and go. Let's take out 1 hole front wing. So are you happy with 1 hole or you want to go for it? Your decision. Let's go 1 hole, we can all do more on the grid plan.
There's a classic bit of butt passing there going on. What do you want to do, engineer? It's your decision. And then at the end of the race, you know, there's always this dilemma, which is, you know, who decides? It's the driver's choice. He's gone out, Montoya's gone out of the pits, talked about adjusting the front wing. Well, it's very early to do that on an installation lap. You can't, not an installation lap, but a lap to the grid.
Early to do it.
Now they're just adjusting. Yes, I mean, he can only get an inkling of what the car's like leaving the grid, leaving the pits here and coming round to the grid. He doesn't really know what it's going to be like in the race. There's not much wind around. There's only 1.4, I think that's kph wind speed, so it's irrelevant really, the wind.
But those tyres he's on are cold, aren't they? So,
yeah,
you know,
no, they'll be, but they're not up to operating.
Exactly.
Yes, you're right. They come out of tyre warmers, so they're warm, but they're not up to operating temperature.
And we should explain the 1 hole position is that we're taking it down a notch. And people don't talk in degrees, they're talking, there's another hole just below that one.
Yeah.
Put the front wing there, it might be lower.
Yeah, it reduces the aerodynamic load on the front wheels, and he obviously felt it was a little bit too pointy. So
now look, we're seeing the crowd there. That's fairly obvious. Well done, Matthew. But they keep saying about this race, and you've driven, in fact, won there, about how passionate the crowd is. You can see them presumably, but can you hear them at all when you're ripping it round?
I think you hear it in your head. I don't think you can actually hear that. There'd have to be an awfully large crowd to be able to hear when you're actually driving around with the crash helmet and your earplugs in and the engine going full knots.
But no. Is it more of a buzz, say, racing here than say,
I mean,
cool?
where you do feel it is on the grid. We'll see in a moment when the cars come round onto the grid, onto their grid positions. You get out of the car, and there is the crowd right next to you, and they've got steel drums going, and they're all having a party, and they've got their shirts off, and they're, I don't know, they're maybe drinking a few of the sponsored products, as it used to be called.
But shouldn't the teams be working on the cars instead of doing that?
Yeah. And there's a shot of a car going straight on.
I saw that. Looked like a Jordan, didn't it, being bright yellow?
We can only guess that I might have been a particular Japanese driver.
I do hope not, for his sake. He's had a bit of a
That wasn't a pit lane entry place, was it, Perry? I wasn't wrong in saying that.
At least he's found a new one.
Yeah. So it's a bit of an atmosphere when you get out of the car, and you can't help but get affected by that.
Damon, we're talking just now about, Rubens as an example. He's here, he's in Brazil. You've raced many times at the British Grand Prix as our top driver. I mean, does it make a difference to you being in front of your home crowd? All that shouting and hollering. I mean, is there an extra charge, or what would you say? Yeah,
I think there definitely is. I just saw that Michael also seemed to be making a front wing adjustment, so that's significant. Maybe this is the pattern we're going to see developing over the season. Any time that Michael does anything or Montoya does something to his car, they seem to get the heebie-jeebies and decide they need it too.
Now, Peter Windsor is a stickler for concentrating on his job. He's more interested in wheel nuts than pina coladas, but he's broken the habit of a lifetime now to give us an idea of the local flavour there in Sao Paulo.
Well, I wish I could, Matt. I was just about to report to the boys. Massive problem here. There are no grid girls for this Grand Prix. I don't know what is going on, but maybe we've got rather sweaty mechanics standing around the car, which is not good news. But I think you should just take a look at the crowd here. This is as near as the crowd ever get to the start of a Formula One race. They're literally only 10 feet away. A lot of the Montoya supporters, as you can see. Juan Pablo's just pulled up on his pole position here, and he's walking calmly. If we can just turn the camera around, just walking calmly over there, probably to get a bit of shade in the garage, maybe have a bathroom break, something like that. Very cool. What a guy. Back to you.
Yeah, I think, Peter, we're all in agreement. I mean, it's significant for me that this is Easter Sunday, because in my book, Montoya is the new Messiah, and he's come to save us all from the Roman tyranny, or whatever you want to call it. He's really pumped up for this. He made his mark, didn't he, last year when he came along and he biffed old Michael into the grass. And
Ah, has that got so? I wonder what all the praise was for and the blasphemy. It's because he biffed Michael into the grass, is it?
Yeah, he gave him a bit of, and there he is. Look, doesn't really give much away, but he seems to know what he's doing. So I'm overtly, I'm afraid, a Montoya fan because I think he's carries something about him which, to me, reminds me. He seems to be a little bit of a cross between Ayrton Senna and Nigel Mansell,
and quite a bit of weight.
Well, he looks that, but he's not actually a very big guy. He's actually quite short. He's perfect racing driver dimensions. They don't like them too tall. And you know, we spoke about Ralf Schumacher being and Montoya is not really bothered too much about penalties and whatnot. So he's not going to give any ground to Michael. This first corner is a tricky first corner. You have an uphill run into the first corner, and then it tightens up. There's a big break, and it tightens up very viciously with the pole position being on the right-hand side, which is the wrong side. You have to cut across from pole position to protect your line.
Why do you think we've seen the BMWs, Williams, out-drag, not necessarily get to the first corner first, but certainly have better acceleration than the Ferraris so far this year? From the start.
There's going to be two factors, Perry, in this. They're both on different tyres. The Bridgestone, it's going to be a Bridgestone versus Michelin factor, and we don't know, and I'd like to know from Peter if he knows, whether Michael opted for a harder or softer compound of the Bridgestones.
Do you think there could be that Williams have also got maybe a smarter traction control system?
And that's the third point, is the traction control. I mean, horsepower is undeniably a factor, but managing these parameters is what it's all about in Formula One. You've got X amount of horsepower, you've got X amount of grip, and you've got to be able to get that horsepower through the road. Looking at the Sauber, getting closer all the time to the point where the pit lane closes, and the adjustments and whatnot that are made at this point are quite often psychological adjustments. Drivers just feeling their way through, getting a good feeling to come back to them from the car, so they can be optimistic when they line up on the grid.
All right, Peter Windsor is now with Ralf Schumacher. Peter.
Ralf, first question, everything feel okay on those laps out of the pits?
Yeah, everything is fine. I've just got a little problem with the clutch, which I hope will not affecting my start.
Does this uphill gradient here at the start change things at all?
Well, it's the same for everyone, so it won't change anything. I mean, you just have to keep your foot on the brakes a bit, not to go backwards, that's all.
It's a pretty impressive first corner there too, isn't it?
It's a pretty tight first two corners, really, so we'll see how we get through it.
Very best of luck, thank you.
Thanks so much.
Thanks, Peter. Let's cross now to Nick Damon, who's with Heinz-Harald Frentzen.
Heinz-Harald, I suppose the question I really have to ask you is, are you going to leave the grid on time this race?
I won't tell you now, because it would be a surprise.
What are your realistic aims here? It's obvious that the Bridgestones aren't the tyre to have, so what are you personally looking to achieve today?
Well, basically we want to have a solid race, finishing the race, and we see in the race how our strategy works compared to the other guys. I hope we got an exciting race and have a lot of fun, and hopefully we finish the race. That's our target.
Wish best of luck. Thanks, Heinz.
Hasn't been a great qualifying session for Arrows. Not the same to be said about the Renault team. It's been a brilliant grid for them. We'll hear from Jarno Trulli in a moment, but in the meantime, let's speak to Adrian Newey. He's with Peter Windsor.
Adrian, few problems obviously in Malaysia and a hot day today. What does that mean from an engine point of view?
Well, obviously it means that we've got to provide a lot of cooling for the engine, so you'll typically see everybody's exit ducts opened up. Those people who are a bit desperate may have even cut holes for the event, but providing you can get on top of the temperatures shouldn't be too much of a problem. The other thing about here is it's low altitude, so that in itself should actually be easy on the engines. They're generating less power than they would do normally.
That's probably a facetious thing to say, but if you got into a sort of conservative mode this race after that problem in Malaysia?
Well, Ilmor is still trying to understand it, Mercedes. They think they do, so we'll race as normal.
Good, very best of luck.
Thank you.
Peter, I don't know if you can hear me, but I think you should advise Adrian there to wear a hat. The Brazilian sun can be vicious at this time of year.
Okay, I will, Damon. Damon Hill says he seems to be wearing a cap. Damon Hill says wear a cap because of the sun.
No, I haven't got any at the moment.
That's the least of his worries, I think, right now.
No, but it was nice of you to say so.
He did mean, actually, that it's at high altitude. He said it was at low altitude, but what he meant was it's low air pressure. And what that means is that the engines, because they're managed with a computer engine management system, they're actually not producing the same amount of horsepower that they can at sea level. So they're under stress, quite oddly, on that point. So the engines are not so critical here, but the heat is a factor.
Peter Windsor's been listening to you, Damon, and has a comment.
Yes, Damon, you're asking about tyres. Of course, we don't know for sure. I think they're on the softer of the two Bridgestone compounds. And Bridgestone actually are reasonably confident the way things have been going. And we see Michael going past now in this lovely 2002 Ferrari. Let's take a good look at it. Michael, of course, being pushed at this stage. And I'd like to say, yes, those are the soft tyres, but I couldn't get to see the sidewall numbers in that short time frame. But Bridgestone, as I say, have come up with a new rear tyre here. It's improved traction for them. They've lost a little bit on the medium to high-speed corners, a little bit more understeer than they had last year, but they've definitely got better traction. So let's see what happens in the race.
Peter, is there anyone or any rumours of anyone doing... Perry's very keen to know here, because he's got some money on it, I think. Is there anyone doing a 3-stop?
Well, I think you might see people like Rubens or maybe Pedro having a go for it. Nobody at the front of the grid, as far as I know, is thinking in that way. But further down the grid, there are going to be people taking punts, and they probably have heard about Perry and the amount of money he's putting on there, down there. So I'm sure there'll be somebody taking him up on it.
Well, Damon's lent it to me, Peter. That's how I can put it on.
And you can ill afford to lose it. We'll come back to you later, Peter. Well, yes, well, it's going to be a nail-biter for you, Terry.
I mean, honestly, that's what Peter... Well, if Peter thinks Pedro as well, so do I.
Well, everyone's saying that, obviously, because he was quick in the warm-up. Yeah. It doesn't mean that. As I said, the warm-up, you know, you can sit down and analyse it. If we had all the data that the teams have, they have their own knowledge, obviously. We don't have the known factor of how much fuel one of those teams ran. And one day we're going to find out. And... But there's Patrick Head, of course, very sensibly wearing a hat.
But not ear defenders. Apparently never wears it.
No, he's deaf as a post, so it actually it makes no difference.
Doesn't matter.
All those years of listening to engines, it's taken its toll. But he doesn't listen to anyone anyway, so it's not important.
He's having a look at the wrong car there. What on earth is he doing looking at the wrong car, Dave?
He's looking at the opposition, Matthew, as you would you'd expect him to do. He's having a good old peek, and because we've seen now. Everyone's got paranoid as hell, and they're putting up barriers. Peter Windsor yesterday was having a look down the pit lane, but he couldn't actually see the Ferrari because in the garage because it had a screen up in front of it. So this is your big chance to take a real good eyeball.
They're queuing up.
Though, conversely, we had fantastic pictures yesterday inside the garage, didn't we? Going through the Ferrari garage, looking at the bodywork close up to the wings and everything.
Yeah, well, this is the contradiction. But we don't actually know what they had on the car, what actual car you were looking at. Now we know this is what they're going to race. So
Ron's on a wind-up, isn't he? He's not going to learn anything now. He just wants to wind them up. There, Nicky's there as well.
Nicky's looking at that, thinking, well, how much? You know.
Yeah. Actually, it's a new car. Obviously, they're going to be interested.
It's only so much. Behind them, you can see Norbert Haig, who's the Mercedes team representative, working McLaren, and you can look and you can see so much. There are little things that you can learn of other people's cars. And you look at the grid. You know, it's incredibly difficult to come up with something these days that gives you a big advantage. In the old days, Colin Chapman would turn up with some ridiculous device on the back of his car, a fan or something, and you could see it was, there, and it would give them a 2-second advantage. Now, from first place on the grid down to 22nd on the grid, we've only got 2.2 seconds separating the entire field.
Well, I was saying earlier on how well Renault are doing nowadays. Jarno Trulli joins us now. Jarno, congratulations, 6th place on the grid. Everything going very well for your team at the moment.
Yes, we are very happy about our performance. Obviously, 6th position is what we expect here. We could have been even quicker, but anyway, it's a good position for the third race of the season. And now it's looking good also for the race because obviously we got a good car, it's reliable. Jenson showed it in Malaysia, so we'll see.
Jarno, Damon here, and we were very shocked to hear that there are no Brazilian pit girls on the grid this year. Is that right? You have no girls, lollipop girls, holding things up for you to keep you calm before the race?
Well, everything is looking, for me, normal. I don't really look into it. And for me, it doesn't make any difference. I'm just very concentrated.
Thank you. Have a good race.
Thank you, Damon.
Well,
so that's it. You're sitting in your car in pole position, and you don't look at the lollipop girls. You just concentrate.
No, exactly. Well, that's a load of rubbish, isn't it? Obviously, it does make a huge difference, and it's all part of the excitement. And you know, I'm turning into a bit of a male chauvinist, aren't I? I'm revealing myself. But no, it used to be, you know, a bit of interesting diversion if you've got lots on your mind.
I think it's another reward of being on pole because, you know, if you're on the pole, then you get a better class of dolly bird there.
I think we said quite enough on that subject. Well, I mean, you can only say so much to Jarno. We spoke to him yesterday. Things are going brilliantly, and there's Jenson Button as well, and they're both enjoying a real fantastic upturn in fortunes with the Renault team.
He would have noticed.
And of course, every time a team comes forward, another team goes back. You know, there would have been teams out there, maybe Jaguar, maybe Jordan, maybe BAR, who were counting on occupying that coveted, you know, third place in the constructors or fourth place in the constructors championship.
Sauber, I reckon they've taken over from a little bit.
Well, the fledgling Toyota team have done well yet again. They're in 10th place, courtesy of Mika Salo, who's talking now to Nick Damon.
Mika Salo starting 10th, but the car's very quick in a straight line, and you're on the right brand of tyres. What are your hopes?
Oh, it looks good. It's very hard for everybody, but I think we are very good to be on Michelins today.
How are you going to approach the first corner?
As usual, just flat out and try to overtake everybody before the first corner. So.
But you're not worried about what may happen if you perhaps touch someone and cause an incident?
Yeah, I don't care. I wouldn't mind if there is an incident in front of me, so I would wipe off a few of the fast cars, so we have a chance to score points. But I don't care what happens there, as long as I don't cause it.
There you go. Thanks a lot. Good luck.
Yeah, it's difficult to answer a question like that. How are you going to approach the first corner, and are you worried about knocking people off? There's so much of it is a lottery going into the first corner on any Grand Prix, and everyone's trying desperately to get ahead, and of course they're trying to do that without tangling with someone else. But typical optimist, Mika Salo there, saying, well, he doesn't mind if there is an accident because he's presuming that it's going to happen in front of him and he'll move himself up the grid. Sounds mercenary, but then that's Formula One.
Now a replay of a helmet being applied. I'm intrigued to see this. Well, a few moments ago we saw Ron Dennis taking a very close look at the opposition, or in the shape of a 2002 Ferrari. Let's find out exactly what he was looking out for.
So, Ron, what do you think of the new Ferrari?
Well, it's not as quick as I thought it was going to be here, but has some interesting features on it that you don't get to see when the cars get put into the garage. So, you know, you never stop learning.
Confident?
No. It's the weakness, you know that. I think we can have a good race. What we need is, if we have reliability, then I think we'll have a strong finish.
Thanks a lot, Ron.
He seems fairly relaxed. I think you think of all the success that Ron Dennis has had in his career, and he's had two of the great all-time greats, if not three. I'm trying to think. Nicky Lauda, he's had in his team. He's had Keke Rosberg, he's had Ayrton Senna, he's had Alan Prost, John Watson, indeed, very own, and he's seen it all. You know, but he's still fiercely competitive and fiercely determined, and he did say that confidence is a weakness, you know, because it makes you rely on something that perhaps might not be there when you turn around and need it.
All right, Rubens Barrichello won't be happy with his grid position for his home race. 8th, in fact, on the grid, but well, he's happy just to be just a few hundred yards from his home. Here he is now.
Rubens, we're all wondering why there are no Brazilian grid girls here.
I don't know, actually.
What have you done with them all?
I haven't took them. Silvana's still here, so I haven't touched them.
How's the car feel now?
Well, the car, it's hot. The car, I don't particularly feel it's perfect, but it's almost there.
Have a great race. Thank you.
Thank you.
He just strikes me as a nice bloke.
Yeah, I mean, he's come a long way. He started off as a very young driver in Formula One, and he was very mature when he first arrived, and a little bit overwhelmed. And of course, he had the misfortune of being teammates with Eddie Irvine early in his career, and Eddie just completely walked all over him. And I think he took a few years to recover from that. Now he finds himself teammates to Michael Schumacher, just like Eddie was, and he's coping pretty well. I mean, you just can't appreciate what it's like to be the focal point of a nation, especially when it's in Brazil and you're a Brazilian driver. There's enormous pressure on him. His weekend, he'll be exhausted. I mean, he's exhausted now, and he's still got to do a Grand Prix. This is the main part of the job coming up. But he'll have been doing interviews, and he took us around the circuit earlier on, and he could have done without all the extra work. Yes, well, there he is.
What was that, by the way, that he was applying there?
I dread to think, but anyway, another little joke there from Michael.
Yeah, well, he's full of them.
He's obviously on a charm offensive. This guy is a machine, let's face it. To have kept up this pressure, relentless, fighting for the championship now since 1994, when he first won the championship. That's getting on, 8 years. He's been fighting to win a world championship, and that takes it out of you. But he's managed to do that. I'm sorry, I'm just trying to.
I wonder where she'd gone. She didn't tell me she'd gone out there. Ah, that's Doris.
Matthew. Well, yes. I just talking at the beginning back to Michael. He comes back fit as a fiddle every year. He never looks. A couple of times he's looked exhausted. He's broken his leg. He's been out for 6 weeks with a broken leg. He came straight back, won his first race, and he doesn't look like he's flagging. And he's religious about his fitness. He's religious about the work that he puts into Ferrari, and you have to admire that. You have to admire that. It's
of the Brazilian Grand Prix, and the 13th time that it has run on the revised Interlagos circuit.
And if you look just to the right of the grid, you can see actually how much of a dip there is. Now it's slightly exaggerated here because the pit lane does rise up more, but in effect what you have is that little bit of a wave effect of the pit lane itself. That's what the start grid itself is also like.
Away goes the safety car for a reconnaissance lap of its own before the cars are set off on their formation lap to check the track is clear and everything is prepared for the start of the race. This was the section of track that we saw the problem at earlier on. Bernoldi going off and the safety car coming out to look after him. But the drivers on the grid, it's a tricky approach to this first corner, isn't it, John? Because of the elevation change slightly as you come up to that first corner, and then the way it drops away from you as you go through it.
Yes, it's one of those corners that it's easy to do when you're on your own, even on a hot lap. But when you've got other cars around you and so close to you, you'll find people will dart left, right. And in the past, a couple of people have tried to go very, very far out to the right and then cut across the front of somebody. Those cars that are cutting across, the ones on the left-hand side of the track, the inside, will not necessarily be aware.
Well, that's the corner after the S that you can see on the map there, where the final speed trap figure is. The intermediate sector points up at the end of the next straight, and after the twisty infield section. And 71 laps for the race here this afternoon. We're all set for another race of drama, no doubt. We certainly have had a couple of major incidents at the start of the last two races. Remember what happened to Ralf Schumacher, who went flying through the air in Australia, and then the contact between Michael Schumacher and Juan Pablo Montoya in the start of the Malaysian race. This first corner is difficult, and of course on the outside of the first corner now is this new extra grippy tarmac rather than a gravel trap. That might affect things a little bit.
Well, one thing's for sure, if somebody does get squeezed out to the right, as long as they don't spin or make contact with anything solid, they will be able to continue. They may lose about 6-7 places, but nonetheless, that's one of the advantages of that new high grip tarmac.
So Montoya on pole, alongside him Michael Schumacher, the 3-times winner here, then Ralph, his 3rd front row start of the year, and David Coulthard, last year's winner. Then it's Kimi Räikkönen and Jarno Trulli. Jenson Button starting 7th ahead of Barrichello in 8th. Nick Heidfeld in 9th, and Mika Salo in the Toyota in 10th again, 2nd race in a row. De La Rosa starting in 11th place, just ahead of Felipe Massa, the Brazilian, starting in 12th. Then it's Irvine in the 2nd Jag, Fisichella in the 1st of the Jordans, and the Honda-powered cars really not performing that well. Down in 15th for Villeneuve as well, and 17th for Panis. McNish starting in 16th place. Frentzen a long way down on Bridgestone tyres that didn't seem to come in too well for him. He starts 18th, Takuma Sato 19th, and then Mark Webber, quite pleased in fact to have got himself ahead of the 2nd Arrows car with his Minardi.
Well, once again, a lot of work going on in the Ferrari, just alongside Williams on the outside, of course. That's the racing line into turn 1. A lot of activity. I'm not quite sure what they're all diving. They look like they're diving into the cockpit, whether Michael's just laid in and they're just getting the seat belts attached. It takes probably 2 people to do it in a rush. Certainly the driver, all he can do is sit there and just allow the mechanics to attach the crutch strap, the lap belts, and of course the shoulder harness.
So now we are into the closing countdown to the start of the formation lap, and you can just feel the pulse quicken a little bit, not only in the cars and down on the grid, but also amongst the fans watching in these beautiful conditions, ready for the start of the Brazilian Grand Prix. Wait for the klaxon. We have just a minute to go now to the formation lap. So the grid must now be cleared, engines fired up, and the mechanics have a few seconds in which to make sure the cars are running. Brand new Bridgestone tyres on the front there for Michael, and indeed on the rear as well. And remember, he saved at least 1 set of tyres yesterday from qualifying.
Yes, Ferrari realised that they weren't seriously going to be able to take pole away. They tried very, very hard, but they sacrificed that last run to ensure that Michael Schumacher had a brand new, or an additional set of tyres, but particularly brand new tyres for this afternoon's 71 lap Grand Prix.
Mechanics have all cleared the grid, so engines are all fired up safely on the 22 cars that are set to start here this afternoon. The breeze is gentle, but it shouldn't affect things down there on the grid, where the temperature is rising in the cockpit and the pulse is beginning to race. They're setting off on their formation lap now. And let's just see them get away cleanly. Hopefully we don't have any problems getting away. The launch control as a practice start for everybody. A little bit of tyre smoke, but nothing like the old days where we used to see great black lines laid down at the start of the formation lap.
Well, in fact, black lines will have been laid down because they're not really using their launch control at this point. They'll save that for the start formally, but they put a bit of rubber down, which of course does aid traction when they do come onto the grid, and that launch control is activated.
Montoya then leads them round. Michael Schumacher just following him at this stage. Get a little bit of heat into the tyres, and look at those grandstands. They are cram-packed here today as they wait to see whether Ferrari will come back at Williams. Ferrari won the first race of the year in Australia. Williams took the win last time out, courtesy of Ralf Schumacher. It's one apiece. Who's it going to be here today? Will Ferrari show that brand new car to be the match, or even better than the Williams, on a track that should suit Williams BMW down to the ground?
Well, the outcome of this Grand Prix, I hope, will not be decided in the first corner. We have seen too many incidents in the first 2 Grand Prix this year. Let's hope that the Grand Prix is a clean start, a first lap, no problem, and then we have a proper Grand Prix, a race between Montoya, the 2 Schumachers, David Coulthard, Kimi Räikkönen, and maybe even Rubens Barrichello, though I suspect that Barrichello is not going to come into the frame until very much later in the race. But do not discount the potential of Jarno Trulli or Jenson Button in the 2 Renaults. They're not there because of luck, they're there because they've done a very good job and are there on merit.
Juan Pablo Montoya's father watching proceedings. He's always around, watching his son. He raced himself in karts. He knows some of what's involved, but at this level, of course, it's somewhat different. But he lets his son get on with it. Juan Pablo Montoya, very much his own man. As we all know, in Formula One, he's come onto the scene. He's only been here just over a year, but everybody recognises the true talent that he has. But Michael Schumacher, the supreme, the 4-times world champion, will be starting alongside him. He drives under the auspices of this man, Ross Brawn, the master tactician. Now, can they find a way of beating Williams BMW here today. Renault looking strong. Flavio Briatore, the team boss at Renault. When Renault ran their own team in the late 70s, early 80s, they were twice winners in Brazil. I wonder if they can come to the fore today. Unlikely, unless we have problems for Williams and Ferrari, but reliability is always an issue at this track. 22 cars getting into position for the start of the race here in Brazil. The tension mounts both in the pit garage and on the track itself. You can see the uphill climb to the first corner. Can they get through that first corner safely today? The last couple of cars move into position. The starting light sequence begins. We wait for the start. And it's blast off in Brazil as Montoya now shuts the door on Michael Schumacher, doing what Schumacher normally does, but he hasn't quite shut the door completely. He still gets in front, but he goes wide. Montoya stays on track, side by side, almost contact. They're at it again, these two, and it's Michael Schumacher with the advantage, just ahead of Juan Pablo Montoya.
Cracking start. Michael Schumacher, now Ralf Schumacher's got the, nearly, Montoya blocks and Ralf Schumacher's wing has been knocked off.
It's Montoya's wing. That was Michael blocking Montoya. And he's taken the front wing off the Williams. Trying to listen up.
Copy that, we're ready with you with a front wing and tyres.
Well, last time out it was Michael's front wing
56
that went this time.
56 for the front wing, please. Set 56 front wing.
This time it is on the Williams, and it's Michael getting away. It's Ralf Schumacher in second place, with Jarno Trulli and Jenson Button both getting away well at the start, but Williams with the work to do, and there is the front wing off Montoya's car.
Well, what a start. We thought we would get through the first corner. That was all right. So all of a sudden down into turn 4, that's where the action occurred. And it was this time Michael Schumacher who put a very stern block on Montoya as he got under the braking into turn 4. The result was the wing on Montoya's car is somewhere in the grass.
30 seconds, Carl.
Wow, what a shame that it's come to that straight away on the first lap. They got through the first corner safely this time, but these two are going to be hammer and tongs all year. Did somebody go off there? Well, there was a lot of smoke, and look at this, a bit of a move going on. Barrichello here from Kimi Räikkönen, but it didn't quite come off.
Well, so much for me and Barrichello starting on a full load of fuel. He wouldn't pull out and pass like that up the hill if you're carrying over 150 kilograms of fuel. Bits of carbon fibre on the racing line. That's going to be a problem. Montoya comes in now. Jordan coming in as well.
What has he picked up on the roll hoop there? He's picked up some sort of bunting.
He's been off the track, I think, because he has got no front downforce. That was Fisichella coming in. McNish also. So 3 cars, Fisichella, McNish and Montoya. Now, is that a consequence of Montoya trying to keep out of the way, or people trying to crawl over the top of him?
A lot of work. Wait and listen on the radio. A lot of work going on.
You're clear one.
Clear the side pods.
White line on the exit. 10-4. That's amazing. No, it is completely amazing.
And he's mystified. Look, take a look. What a great view we'll have here. Move to the inside, and Michael just blocked the access down the inside, and that took off the front wing.
But the question is, did Michael make more than one move? He went to the left of the track. He then came back to the right, which is where Montoya was going. Montoya's allowed to do that, but Michael, in theory, is not allowed to do that.
Well, I'm sure Michael will argue that he only made the one move to the left, but the timing of that move, that was the key thing. It was as Montoya had a run on him.
Yes, but he moved to the left, but then he moved back to the middle of the track, and that's where the contact took place. It was not on the left of the track, it was in the middle of the track, and therefore that constitutes a second move by Michael Schumacher.
Well, the stewards will be reviewing it, and remember, if he is deemed to have caused an accident, then he could be put 10 places further back on the grid next time out. They can use video evidence, they can analyse it after the race, and here comes Barrichello on the charge, trying to get past Jenson Button now.
I mean, he must have an oily rag in the fuel tank. The progress that Rubens Barrichello has made, 8th in the grid, now up to 5th, and you can see the speed of the Ferrari against that of the Renault ahead of him. Barrichello pushing Button as hard as anybody.
Yeah, and Button got very out of shape just a moment ago. He managed to gather it all together. Michael Schumacher leads here in Brazil after another dramatic opening lap. Ralf Schumacher, his brother, is in second place. Jarno Trulli in third for Renault. Button in fourth, and we ride on board with the man in fifth place. That is Rubens Barrichello. Coulthard behind him, Räikkönen in 7th, Heidfeld 8th, then it's Massa 9th and Irvine 10th.
But watch for the pass as Barrichello comes up behind Button. They come through this final curve onto the pit straight. He's got the run, he's got the slipstream, he's coming up alongside. Can he do him under brakes? Button will brake late. Barrichello, no, he's not going to do it. Is he going to sneak down?
Oh,
Jensen, now you gave that one up easy, I do have to say.
Well, he did a bit at the end there, but look at the fans, they love it because their man's on a charge. But as you say, John, the likelihood is they're running that Ferrari relatively light because he seems to have great pace.
Looking good, balance looks good.
In these early laps. And it sounded like Jensen on the radio then. We'll find out, no doubt, as he now pushes his teammate. Let's take another look at the start of the race. Wasn't a great getaway from Montoya, but he then tried to do the chopping job on Michael. Didn't chop as aggressively, perhaps, as Michael tends to.
No, and Michael just about when he thought, no, I'm not going to make it. Then Montoya runs wide in turn one, gives Michael the opportunity to cut back, puts Montoya under pressure side by side. Here's the view from Michael Schumacher's car. Montoya to the right, he'll come across to the left. Not so severe as Michael did on Montoya in Malaysia. Michael goes up the inside, locks a brake, dirty part of the track. Montoya's got all the racetrack, but just too quick, hasn't got the grip. Now it's Michael, he's got the momentum. Again, side by side, they go through Curva de Sol. Montoya backs out, he's on the dirty part of the track, and all of a sudden, Michael Schumacher's in the lead.
Yes, and then, of course, Montoya with the BMW horsepower managed to get the draft on him and tried to overtake, and that was when contact was made. He's back on track again now, and he's running in 20th position.
David Coulthard, or maybe we've got this one right, maybe McLaren are running a lot of fuel, maybe they're going to go, as they did in Malaysia, deep into this race before they come in for a single pit stop. They're falling back, but Barrichello is the man on the move up to third place. He's got the two Renaults of Trulli and Button behind him, and then it's Coulthard and Raikkonen.
Yes, indeed. Michael Schumacher, last lap, 1 minute 17.263 compared to a 1 minute 18.0 for Ralph. Little battle going on here between the two Jags, and they're right behind Mika Salo. De La Rosa in there, and Eddie Irvine. In fact, Irvine's just been passed by Mika Salo.
Well, I said this, look behind the two arrows, one of the BARs, two Jaguars and a Jordan. This was the part of the field where we're going to see probably some of the best racing. 7 cars covered by 0.7 of a second.
It's great stuff, isn't it? Really good to see. And oh, look at this, the two arrows trying to put the move on Olivier Panis there by the looks of things in the BAR, as we're riding on board with Takuma Sato. He's at the back of this group in 17th place.
His teammate Giancarlo Fisichella got involved in the first lap tangle. It was with Alan McNish. We don't think that was involving Juan Pablo Montoya. That, I think, happened on the exit of turn 4. And there we see Barrichello now up into second place.
Yeah, Barrichello's up into second. It's Ferrari 1-2, and look at the fans. They're loving it. They're lapping it up as their man Rubinho goes into second position and chases now after teammate Michael Schumacher. The gap just under 5 seconds between them. Well, he certainly is flying at this point in the race. The Bridgestone tyres looking good, but you have to say he must be running this car relatively light, and for Ralph to let him through relatively easily. I think Ralf Schumacher must have started with a heavy fuel load in his car.
Michael Schumacher just running away from the field, 5 seconds now. That's in fact ahead of Rubens Barrichello. It was Ralf Schumacher as they came across the line the last time. But Barrichello now in second place. In fact, the gap probably extending more than 5 seconds. But the battle going on behind 4th, 5th and 6th between the two Renaults and David Coulthard in the first of the two McLarens.
Battle between two Brits here, because we've got Jensen Button running in 5th place and David Coulthard in 6th. His teammate Kimi Raikkonen is nearly 2 seconds behind in 7th, and then Heidfeld in 8th. This was the pass, Barrichello versus Ralf Schumacher.
I have to say, I think Ralf Schumacher's got a lot of fuel on board to have the power and the Ferrari to do that. It wasn't just horsepower, that's got to do with weight.
Yeah, we know how strong the BMW engine is, so up the hill we would have expected him to be quick. Barrichello's just set the fastest lap of this race, 1:16.8. He's flying, he's much faster than teammate Michael Schumacher, but surely he has very little fuel in that car relative to the other machines out there.
And just look how quickly he's pulled away from Ralf Schumacher. Rubens Barrichello up into second place, 4.3 seconds. He's now taking probably 2, 3, 4 tenths of a second out of Michael Schumacher's lead. Barrichello clawing back to the front where he wanted to be after qualifying. He ended up 4th row of the grid, 8th quickest. There's a small compensation right now because no doubt he'll be into the pits. He will be the first of the lead cars, in my view, to stop for fuel.
Well, there's David Coulthard in the McLaren. 6th position for him at the moment. Let's ride on board with him for a second. Of the two cars you're looking at ahead of him are Jensen Button immediately ahead and Jarno Trulli, the car just ahead of that.
And both Renaults had a really good start, particularly Trulli. They managed to get ahead of Coulthard on the run up into turn 1. But Coulthard, for me, and Raikkonen, in for a long first run.
Well, here comes Michael Schumacher. He's completed 7 laps. Another quick lap there from Rubens Barrichello, and the gap between them's come down from 5 to 3.6 seconds. So Barrichello catching his teammate. Here come the two Renaults, Trulli, Button, and then David Coulthard, with Raikkonen a bit closer, and McNish, who is a lap down, remember. Well, he's right on the tail there, almost looking, trying to get past, and here comes the battle further back. Irvine here under pressure from Frentzen. Frentzen going down the inside into turn 1. Same engine power.
Go get him.
and Heinz being told to go get him. He's got past the Jaguar of Irvine.
And good racing. Irvine went to the limit in the corner. He did the right thing. He was firm but fair. He allowed Frentzen through. Oh, and a Jordan. And that, I think, is Fisichella.
Yeah, that's Giancarlo Fisichella, who has expired in a cloud of steam, it looked like, rather than smoke. And quite what...
The engine has failed in Fisichella's car.
So it looks like, well, engine-related problems, certainly by the way of that little thing smoking and steaming away. He has a quick look underneath. Let's take a look at when it went.
Just coming out on this infield part of the circuit, so he just pulls off very quickly. Couldn't have done any better. But again, further disappointment for Jordan. Eddie Jordan's birthday on Saturday is not bringing him any further luck this afternoon. So Fisichella's out. Takuma Sato is in 17th place. He's embroiled in a battle with Panis and Bonaldi, Frentzen and Irvine, Villeneuve, De La Rosa. Those 6 cars added, well, hammer and tongue.
And look at that, McNish right behind Raikkonen there. You can see the yellow blobs at the top of the screen. That indicates there is a yellow flag out there, but that's because of Fisichella's car having stopped at the side of the track. So it's not a full yellow everywhere, just a local yellow around Fisichella's car.
Looking back at this battle, De La Rosa, Villeneuve, and behind Villeneuve now Frentzen. Irvine dropping back a little bit. Frentzen now trying to use the momentum he built up. He got past Irvine relatively easily. Irvine fought for it but didn't sort of say, well, I'm not going to give you room.
That's right. Now let's take another look. This was another move that happened just a moment ago. This was Takuma Sato getting past Olivier Panis.
And no chance.
But he has a go, doesn't he?
Well, he's a goer. But I mean, he came, you could see the speed. In Panis ain't, and he sort of slouched in the brakes department. And Takuma Sato, he's braver than Dick Tracy. He was shot down the inside in the dirty part of track. You know, you're going to have to make your pass earlier, Takuma, if you want to get the job done into that part of circuit.
He is indeed. He's learning, though. He's learning this trade of Formula One. He is a racer. We saw that in his Formula 3 campaigns, and he's having a good old go here again. We're looking at our race leader in super slow motion through the first couple of corners. He has an advantage of 2.4 seconds over his teammate Rubens Barrichello, who in turn is nearly 6 seconds ahead of Ralf Schumacher.
Those are fantastic pictures. The Bridgestone tyre doesn't have that oscillation we've seen from Michelin, particularly on the McLaren. Villeneuve breaks down behind Pedro De La Rosa into turn 1. Quicker into the corner. De La Rosa then just seems to be, I don't know why. Oh, Jacques, we saw that oversteer in the morning warm-up. He's still got it. He's got a low downforce car. He's got a very nervy car aerodynamically. But he should have a fairly quick car in a straight line. The trouble is he hasn't got the horsepower. He's just trying to make the car quicker by reducing the downforce. But behind Frentzen, he's the man who's on the move. Jacques Villeneuve, watch your mirrors. There's a big orange arrows coming behind you.
Yeah, there is, and Frentzen's been lapping quickly, as we saw. He got past Irvine. Now he's going to try and get past the Canadian in the BAR Honda. He is the top Honda runner at the moment, is Jacques Villeneuve in 12th position, and just behind the Ford-powered Jaguar of Pedro De La Rosa. And of course, Frentzen wanting to home in on that Jaguar more than anything else. Same engines, and they want to prove that Arrows can beat Jaguar in the battle of David versus Goliath in terms of budget. Look at Villeneuve.
Again, you see, that's what happens. You take wing out of the car to get straight line speed. You end up with a car aerodynamically very unstable in those high-speed corners. Back on with Rubens Barrichello. That little speck in the distance is this man, Michael Schumacher.
The gap just under 2 seconds, though. He's still closing. He's still faster than Schumacher. Schumacher running at a heavier fuel load, no doubt. Here we go.
Villeneuve tries to make a move on De La Rosa. He stays on the inside. Can Villeneuve go around the outside? De La Rosa's got the line. He's got the grip. Now watch for Frentzen. He's going to make a move, and Villeneuve on the exit of Curve de Sol. Watch the oversteer on the exit of the corner. Frentzen's the man who's going to try and take away the position that Villeneuve's in. That's P12.
Can he get the slipstream here? Frentzen trying to line himself up, but it looks as though he can't quite get there. So again, he has to settle in behind Villeneuve. and look for another opportunity somewhere else. De La Rosa doing a fine job. He's not blocking. He's racing for position. That's perfectly fair. And he's in 11th place. Remember, they're about 2.5 seconds behind Mika Salo. Salo running in 10th.
Jenson Button coming under a little bit of attention and heat from David Coulthard. There's the Scot again down through this Magulo corner. So careful now, don't brake late, David, you're over braking yourself. See, Button slows down earlier, but he gets on the power and can get the drive up the hill, and he extends the gap to David Coulthard and himself.
Coulthard in 6th place, and not used to having to sit behind a Renault or Benetton as it was, but these cars are showing so much better speed, almost bringing back the glory days of Benetton in the mid-90s, when Michael Schumacher took 2 wins here at the Interlagos circuit for the team. Now it's Renault. Now look at Villeneuve. Now he's got the inside line. Last time he tried the outside. Can he do it down the inside? Yes, I think he can. He's ahead as long as he can keep it tied into the corner. Good move that from Jacques Villeneuve.
A very courageous move. Villeneuve was fully committed. Pedro de la Rosa gave him the inside line. Now, he didn't have to do that, but I think he felt that ultimately Villeneuve is capable of lapping quicker at this point. Pedro de la Rosa, no doubt, has got a big load of fuel on board. Villeneuve probably less fuel, but also running a lot less downforce, and that's giving him the advantage at the second part of these 2 long straights.
Jenson Button still managing to fend off David Coulthard for the moment, and remember, the other McLaren of Kimi Raikkonen just behind in 7th place. So the 2 McLarens perhaps just getting a little bit held up by the Renault. It's a battle for position. There's nothing wrong for Button. It's his duty to try and stay in front. As you see, Barrichello that much closer to teammate Michael Schumacher. The gap has come down to 1.2 seconds.
Well, Michael Schumacher not going slowly. You saw a slight slide as the car exited out of turn 1, dropping down through the centre S's. Now Rubens Barrichello closing down to 1.2 seconds on race leader Michael Schumacher. Coulthard's going to have a go down the inside. Has he got the momentum? Is he brave enough? Yes, he is.
Once again, Button didn't really fight for the position, and the McLaren goes ahead again. It may be different fuel loads as much as anything. Just a quick note that Montoya still in 20th place. His lap times 1 minute 17.752. Nothing particularly dramatic in terms of a lap time there, and he's still got some 25 seconds before he gets onto the back of the group with Bernoldi and Alex Young. So Montoya really does have some work to do, and it's not like Malaysia where they're picking off cars one by one every lap.
Well, the question mark is, will Ferrari allow the progress of Barrichello to continue at the rate it's doing? He's run down his teammate. We're on lap 13. How far will Barrichello go before he has to come into the pits?
Well, the question is, yes, how much lighter is the car? Michael might be quite happy to let Rubens past at this stage. Presumably Michael Schumacher's car running heavier and have the advantage later on. But you can see Michael's trying hard. He looked the left front there and still missed the apex of turn 1. And again, is sliding around quite a lot, that car. And Michael's trying hard, but hasn't got the pace of this man. Here comes Rubens.
Rubens going to pass him down the straight. The crowd have gone absolutely ballistic.
Look at that. They really have gone wild now as Barrichello takes the lead. It's not the first time he's led at Interlagos, but can he keep it there, because he has such an awful finishing record around this track, and as we know, this car must be running very light in the early stages to be quite so fast.
Well, I would anticipate somewhere between lap, let's say 18 and 24. That's a pretty wide window, but we don't know how much or little fuel Ferrari have put into Barrichello's car. Here's the pass, really very simple for Rubens. He's got a huge weight saving over Michael. He's got the momentum off the corner. Light fuel load gives you basically better grip, but also allows better acceleration. The engines are very similar, although they are actually different engines, but horsepower and drivability probably, well, a few small percentages of a difference.
Now, Coulthard has caught up to the other Renault, that of Jarno Trulli. So he's got the job to do once again, having fought his way past Jenson Button. Coulthard now runs in 5th place. The 4th place car of Jarno Trulli just ahead. And in fact, right here, we're running with Raikkonen, who's got the job of getting past Button. So we've got the 2 battles going on between Renault and McLaren. This one between Button and Raikkonen.
A little bit further down the field, we were watching the battle with Villeneuve, Frentzen and De La Rosa. De La Rosa's dropped down now. Also, Frentzen's managed to get past the Jaguar. So it's Villeneuve 11th, Frentzen 12th. 2.8 seconds between Villeneuve and Frentzen. Frentzen, of course, losing momentum in this process.
McNish just staying on the back of these 2 as well, so still putting in some quick laps, but unfortunately a long way down after having come into the pits at the beginning of the race. And just going around on this next lap, we can see Ralf Schumacher's beginning to lap a little faster. He's 9.4 seconds off the lead in the Williams BMW, but it's just put in a very quick first segment time.
Well, I think waiting for the Williams to burn off again the load of fuel that it is on. Ralf driving not too aggressively in these opening laps, waiting till that fuel load gets down to so the point he can then maximise the potential the Michelin tyre has. What we're seeing right now is domination from Bridgestone. The first time we've seen that really all through the weekend. But Ralf now beginning to realise, and the team telling him, OK, you can start to push. You're 9.4 seconds behind Barrichello, 7.9 seconds behind your brother Michael. Here comes Ralf.
Yes, indeed. Ralf Schumacher across the line. A 17.215. Barrichello is still the man who's really flying. That was a slightly quicker lap from Ralf than for Michael, though, on that previous lap. And Barrichello, with this light car, is going very quickly indeed. We're still some way off the lap record, but still, of course, the car relatively heavy at this stage of the race. Looking down the order, Trulli in 4th, Coulthard in 5th, then Jenson Button 6th, Kimi Räikkönen in 7th, Nick Heidfeld 8th, ahead of Felipe Massa in 9th, Mika Salo running in 10th, ahead of Villeneuve, Frentzen still in 12th, and 13th place for De La Rosa, Irvine 14th. Well, in fact, he's just been passed by Takuma Sato, so Irvine now down to 15th.
And well, I mean, imagine Takuma Sato, he's barely had a chance to pass somebody in a real race in a Grand Prix. He's found one space up to 14th place. Irvine, there's a battle going on all through the field with Sato, Irvine, Panis, Mark Webber that little bit further behind.
So great close-up view of McLaren versus Renault. Oof, we're using the curves a little bit. And you've got the view from the just behind that front wing. Jenson Button ahead. Kimi Räikkönen is the man we're riding on board with. And a great challenge between those two. Barrichello just slightly ahead, 2.8 seconds the advantage. Another new fastest lap from Rubens on that lap. Ralf Schumacher, again, quicker than his brother by 0.03 of a second. Very little to choose between them in terms of pace here, as Ralf tries to close the gap up on Michael Schumacher. So Michael just trying to control things there at the moment in second place, as across the line go Trulli and Coulthard. Hasn't quite found a way past yet, but the McLaren looking threatening once more. Both of them having to work a little bit through that fast left-hander. Now building up to... Oh, and Barrichello in trouble. Oh, Rubens Barrichello. Is it going to be 8 non-finishes in a row here in Brazil? It looks very likely. And
I'm not sure that isn't something in the rear suspension. You can see Barrichello's head looking in the mirror, I think trying to get a glimpse, and I suspect, I don't know, but I have a feeling that might be something in the rear suspension has let go, because Barrichello's pace suddenly stopped. There's certainly no mechanical signs of any engine problem. No, the suspension looks fine. So maybe it was just something that he is hydraulics or electronics. Those are the two likely areas for trouble for a modern Formula One car.
Oh, what a great shame for the fans who've turned out in their thousands here today to support him. And it's gone wrong so early on in this race. We're only on the 17th lap, and Rubens hasn't finished a race yet this year. Of course, the crash took him out in Australia. Engine let go last time in Malaysia, and now something else has gone wrong. It shouldn't have worked out this way. He's in the 2001 car, John. This one's supposed to be reliable.
Yes, but sometimes, you know what they say, and for Rubens Barrichello, for the 3rd time this year, it has happened. I think the blow-up, particularly in Malaysia, was a bitter pill. He was comfortably in the lead of the race, and all of a sudden, that engine let go.
Right, another battle going on as they cross the line, and... well, Barrichello just getting out of the car, as we can't express the disappointment he must feel. How can you have 8 non-finishes in a row here in Brazil in your home race, when Michael Schumacher has never had a non-finish? It just doesn't seem to be fair, but that's the way it goes sometimes.
Well, they're the team, they're just looking at the pictures, they're just saying, well, you can't get worse than that on Easter Sunday, can you, Rubens?
Great shame for him. Michael Schumacher, our race leader then. He was passed by Barrichello, although we did expect Barrichello to make an early stop, of course. 8 seconds the gap now. Oof, look at Michael. We saw him spin up there on our coverage on one of the free practice sessions. He almost did it again that time.
Look how hard Michael Schumacher is pushing. He knows he's got now his brother behind him. There was no cushion. Barrichello would inevitably, when his pit stops, fallen back behind, but he's now got his brother in the Williams there. As the Ferrari ends the straight, the Williams comes onto the straight, and they are concerned that Williams and Ralf Schumacher are a one-stop strategy. I don't believe that Michael Schumacher can get through this race on a one-stop strategy. I suspect he's on 2, but probably carrying more fuel than Barrichello, who was certainly very, very light at the start of this race.
But the important thing is, on that last lap, Ralf Schumacher put in a quick lap. He was 0.2 of a second faster than Michael Schumacher. We could see how hard Michael was trying by the way he got out of shape under brakes for the first corner. And there's no doubt that the Williams BMW is looking quicker. And again, a new fastest first sector time for Ralf Schumacher. He's closing on his brother.
And it looks very, very comfortable for Ralf Schumacher. None of the hard work. You can see that Michael Schumacher's pushing the car to the limit. Ralph's just sitting there. Hand movements very gradual, very predictable, nothing dramatic. Watch Schumacher coming across start-finish line again as he breaks into this very difficult to see and project into turn 1.
There's the gap we can see as he comes across the line. 7.3 seconds between them, and on that lap again he picked up nearly half a second on Michael Schumacher.
But he runs wide. He runs wide in turn 1, and Enrique Banoldi back in the garage with a problem, but Ralf Schumacher on that lap 1:16.8.9 ran wide, so he'll allow brother to claw back a little bit more. Let's look back and see. Oh, and it's one of the Minardis.
Alex Young, yep, just losing control. We've seen him spin a few times this weekend. Get on the brakes, Alex. Yep, he's done that. That's one of those areas where they've taken the gravel away and put down the extra grippy tarmac on the runoff section. Just a quick note, John, that Montoya has passed a few people now and he's climbed back up through the field. He's up into 17th position, but now he's got another 11-second gap between himself and the Minardi of Mark Webber. But he's lapping pretty quickly, around the 1:17.5.
But the difficulty that Montoya will face is as he gets into the meat of the midfield, those cars, as much as they may try to get out of his way, they are actually racing for position. Montoya will expect no favours because he is not coming up to lap them, he's coming up to pass them for position, so they are not obliged to get out of his way. It's up to Montoya to use his equipment to get past whenever and wherever possible.
Still the battles continue up front as Michael Schumacher trying to stay ahead of his brother Ralf Schumacher up front, and as I mentioned, the gap 7.3 seconds last time around. Jarno Trulli in 3rd position, David Coulthard in 4th, Button in 5th, and then Kimi Räikkönen in 6th ahead of Nick Heidfeld, and then Mika Salo up to 8th position now with Massa at 9th and Villeneuve into 10th.
But that little moment Ralf Schumacher had at the end of the lap we were watching these cars come through on cost Ralf Schumacher time. The gap has actually extended back up to 8.9 seconds. So one little move coming to this corner, braking just too late, running wide as we saw Ralf do. Get onto the dirty bit of track, you pick up dirt in your tyres, you get rubber. The next 2 or 3 corners you spend cleaning those tyres up, and all that hard work is for nothing.
This was Takuma Sato managing to get past Irvine, was it? Or no, or was he trying to get past? He's trying to get past De La Rosa that time, and it didn't work again.
I mean, that was scary because he was so close to the Jaguar. There was barely room between them. I don't know why there wasn't contact with the wheels. But again, Sato showing that he's not short in the Bravey Stakes. Dived down the inside, missed his braking on the dirty part of the racetrack. I mean, if they can get this guy, get a handle on him and get him to control his well, speed, they may have a winner on their hands.
Yeah, he certainly seems to have lots of talent. It just needs taming at this stage. Now, Michael Schumacher getting in amongst the back markers, passing Alex Young any moment here, who's getting the blue flags to say, get out of the way, you've got the race leader coming up. So he hopefully will stay to one side of the track here and not do a Jos Verstappen, who took out Montoya at this point last year in the race. Well, he didn't do that. He got on the brakes early enough. Michael Schumacher goes through cleanly, and he's maintained that gap on this last lap, 8.7 seconds. But Michael's still attacking, although Ralf was a fraction faster on the overall lap time.
Slightly further down the field, Jenson Button under severe attack from Kimi Räikkönen. Just half a second between Button in 5th and Räikkönen in 6th as they come across start-finish line, and Räikkönen putting in personal bests on that last lap on the first sector.
Well, Michael Schumacher, can he maintain the pace in the Ferrari to deny Williams on this occasion? Certainly with the way things are looking good at the moment, but it may well be that he has to stop earlier and may well have to stop twice. We don't know yet, still in the relatively early stages, about a third distance completed, nearly there anyway, and this is the battle between Trulli and Coulthard.
Well, it can't get any closer than you're watching it. It says 0.2 of a second as it goes across the start-finish line. I promise you it's less than that now as they sweep through these very low-speed first, second gear turns. No advantage from a tyre perspective, both cars on Michelin tyres. Both cars probably running fairly high levels of fuel. at the start of the race. Coulthard certainly has no advantage in a straight line over the Renault of Jarno Trulli. And I tell you, Mercedes-Benz and everybody else should think a lot about what Renault have done with this very wide-angle V10 engine, 111 degrees. Was very problematic at the start of 2001. It's starting to become right now.
Yeah, it looks as though it's got some decent horsepower now, doesn't it? Because again, Coulthard can't get close enough to challenge into the first corner. And once again, he has to follow Trulli through the bend, lose aerodynamic downforce, and that drops him a little further back once again. Michael Schumacher did a 1 minute 17.4 as opposed to Ralf Schumacher 1:16.7 last time around. So again, Ralf just closed up the gap slightly. Montoya did a 1:17.3, and Montoya now 5.6 seconds behind Mark Webber in 16th position.
Well, Coulthard closes up as they come through the Ferradura corner. There's not really very much you can do. You can just put pressure on the driver ahead of you. You can move your car around and try and get him to start looking in his mirrors. But really where David Coulthard's got to start to think very hard about what he can do with Jarno Trulli will be as they come to the end of the second sector of this circuit. As they come through the downhill Mergulo corner, try not to brake as late as he's done previously, and then pick up the throttle. It's through this corner, down the bottom, as Jordans are preparing for Takuma Sato to come in for his early pit stop. Shame we cut away from what was going on with Coulthard, but we'll see whether he can do anything with the Renault ahead of him.
Well, that might explain why Takuma's been able to overtake people, well, try to overtake people anyway. He's running a fairly light car if Jordan are already making sure that he's coming into the pits. They're the only team so far that we're seeing preparing.
Mika Salo in the lead, Toyota, as he battles with Nick Heidfeld for 7th place.
That's a very impressive effort once again from Toyota, I have to say. Didn't expect this sort of performance, and once again Salo showing that they can run the Toyota Formula 1 car in the top 10 very competitively.
There you see the differences in that middle sector of the gap closing from Ralf Schumacher to Michael Schumacher. They were 7.9 seconds adrift when they came across the start-finish line at the end of lap 23, coming up to the end of lap 24, whether it be 7.7, 7.6. It is closing, it's fractional, it's not enough, but Michael Schumacher is driving his Ferrari on the limit.
Yeah, this is classic Michael Schumacher, absolutely on the limit every lap. He has to do every lap like a qualifying lap, and he did a 1:16.6 on that last lap, and that is his personal best so far.
And he stuck it to brother Ralph. The gap has gone from 7.9 up to 8.4. So did Schumacher make a mistake on that lap? We didn't see anything, but certainly Michael pushing. Ross Brawn will be on the radio to him, telling him what he needs to do. They'll be looking at the pit stop window, not so much as when to come in, but when to get back out on track when it's clear.
Coulthard has a good run this time on Jarno Trulli, trying to go for it down the inside, but again he's not quite close enough, and it's a repeat performance behind as Raikkonen continues to pressurise Jenson Button, but again they can't quite find a way past these two Renaults. Well, Coulthard in 4th position. But Michael Schumacher, John, this is where he is so brilliant, is lap after lap putting in such commitment throughout the race, not just on one lap, but time after time.
Well, we've seen it since Michael Schumacher became a Grand Prix driver, and so many races have been won by Michael with the guidance of Ross Brawn in the pits. They've seen victory where there was no victory. No one thought that Schumacher, or either a Ferrari or a Benetton, as it may have been, could win on a given day, yet they made victories happen.
Well, we'll find out what happens. Of course, it'll come down to strategy as well. Just come into the pits, Jacques Villeneuve, so he's come in fairly early, lap number 25 for his first pit stop, and that means that he's on a 2-stop strategy, and we wait to see what else other people are on. That drops him back down the order, of course. Montoya, meanwhile, is now right with Mark Webber, let me tell you. As they crossed the line last time, it was 0.2 of a second between them. I think we might have seen Montoya get past by the time we see him once more across start-finish, and Montoya will be in that big group of cars involving people like Panis, Irvine and De La Rosa.
Oh, again, Raikkonen trying so hard to find a way past Jenson Button, but cannot just get his McLaren just far enough up as they get into the brake zone to put it alongside Jenson Button and take away Button's 5th place.
Well, this really is team formation stuff as Trulli holds on to that 3rd position. There's Button running in 5th with Kimi Raikkonen desperately trying to find a way past. Well, he's just got to keep patient, keep cool at this stage in a race. Don't take too many risks, because it may open up for you as long as you're in the right place at the right time.
Well, I think it'll be a case of who will blink first, in other words, who will be first into the pits between these two teams, Renault or McLaren. My suspicion is that it will be the Renault team. McLaren have got a very large fuel capacity, and they've been known on many occasions to go deep, deep, deep into a race before they make that one and only stop for the afternoon.
Let me tell you, Montoya got past Mark Webber on the last lap, and in fact he's passed Massa now because Massa's just been into the pit, so Montoya now up to 13th position. And we've got a yellow, that's because Panis has stopped.
Yes, just on the exit of the Curva de Sol on the back straight, Olivier Panis's car has come to a stop. We don't know the reason for it, we have to wait and see. But in the meantime, Michael Schumacher is again pulling away from Ralf Schumacher in second place, up to 8.6 seconds.
This is very keen of Rubens to be running quite so fast on his way back to the pits, waving to the crowd as he does so.
Well, this is the pit lane he's running down, so he's got the grandstand. There's Olivier Panis on the exit of the pit lane on the other side of the racetrack. That car will have to be removed to safety. Hopefully he's managed to get the car into neutral. There is this situation in the regulations where it is mandatory. You have got an external switch that will enable the car to be put into neutral if the driver has lost the engine. There's a battle. McNish dives down the inside.
Well, it's great. Sad news for Panis. He joins Barrichello as another driver not to have finished the first 3 Grand Prix of the season.
There's the yellow flag station just on the exit as Schumacher makes his way past Alex Young, and now Alan McNish will have another lap put on him.
Yes, that's right, and we'll keep an eye on that. And you know, not far ahead of Michael was Juan Pablo Montoya, because he's in that group a little further ahead that he'll be coming up to lap. So that's an interesting situation, although Montoya will have to fight his way through that traffic as quickly as possible.
And interestingly, after that incident in turn 4 in the opening lap, when Montoya had contact with Michael Schumacher, I believe Schumacher did make a second move, but it appears at the present time the decision is that it was Montoya's fault. He outbraked himself.
Well, we shall wait and see. Watching the gap here between the two leaders, 8.7 seconds it was as they came around last time. Montoya up into 12th position now, and the next job of his will be to try and get past Eddie Irvine and Pedro de la Rosa in the 2 Jags.
Takuma Sato, who's already been in the pits, is appearing to be back in the pits for a second time. In the meantime, Montoya showing up purple in that final sector.
Oh, look at Michael! Oh, he got so out of shape there under braking. He's behind McNish, and I thought he'd lost it that time.
Well, I think what he was doing was looking ahead at McNish, trying to gauge where he was going to catch the Toyota. He knows that further ahead, there is Montoya there, he's between the 2 Jaguars. He wants to catch Montoya at a part of track, catch McNish at a part of track where he will not lose time, so he has to balance his momentum with what that of McNish's is, so not to catch him. Now McNish is getting the blue flag. He will be warned that the race leader is coming up behind him, and at the first opportunity, or any opportunity, McNish pulls over to the I thought he was going to pull over to the left. He will do so, not down to this left-hander, but into the next right.
Please, we got to get a fine.
He's getting the signal to move out of Michael's way, otherwise they'll get a fine. And it's a difficult section of track.
Alan, you have to let Schumacher pass. You will have to let
him
pass.
To let him pass. I'm sure Alan will do it.
Into the first corner, into the first corner.
Now, whether McNish's judgment is right or not, has he gone past 4 stations? That is the question, but I think that the team are right to say let him go through. McNish could have backed off and gotten himself out of a potential problem. He's now got to let him go through here into turn 1, but Michael's hand may come out of the cockpit. He may not necessarily be entirely happy about that.
So he's let him through now. This was the moment before. Watch this one.
Way, he did get it sideways coming in very early. Again, that's almost a replay of what we saw in practice on Saturday morning, when again the back of the car suddenly steps out. Now, this time he collected it. The previous time the car took a turn to the left, finished up across the grass, across that high friction tarmac, and it backed it into the tyre barrier. Michael, you are on the limit, but so is his brother, Ralf Schumacher. The gap is now closed. Once again, it's down to the lowest it's been in any point in the race, 6.5 seconds, and Ralf Schumacher is currently the quickest man on the track.
Look at this again, he's dirt tracking this thing, he's all over the place, sideways, but still going quickly as the battle continues between the Renaults and the McLarens. That's Trulli versus Coulthard coming through. Picture not far behind them is Button with Raikkonen, but Michael Schumacher really trying hard at this stage, 6.5 seconds ahead of his brother Ralf Schumacher. This race is certainly not over because Michael knows he's having to put everything on the line to stay in front. Montoya now trying to get past
De La Rosa.
De La Rosa this is, yes.
I don't think there'll be too much trouble. Montoya on the outer side of the circuit, the racing line, Montoya on the inside. He did the right thing. He got out of Montoya's way. He knows the BMW Williams has got the pace, and he knows that Montoya, if he doesn't get past him, he might even go over the top of him.
Good job. You can make P3.
So he's being told by race engineer Tony Ross that he could get up to position 3. Well, that won't satisfy Montoya. He's out to win this race. There's no doubt about that. He will be fuming, but at the moment he's trying to control that aggression that he must feel after what happened on the first race, and he's just got to concentrate on the job of driving the car as efficiently as possible.
Well, everybody thought that Montoya would be the driver trying to get under Michael Schumacher's skin, but I think right now it's Michael Schumacher is returning the compliment and getting really under the skin of the Colombian. 2 races in succession now, there's been contact on the first lap, not necessarily the first corner of the first lap, and on both occasions it would appear that Montoya has suffered more than he feels is fair.
Yes, picked up the drive-through penalty, of course, last time in Malaysia, although Michael had to make the stop for the wing change. Look at the gap between these two.
5.7 seconds. Ralf Schumacher is using the opportunity. Malka is more in traffic right now. He's got Pedro de la Rosa, or Servan, in fact, ahead of him. So Ralf Schumacher using the clearer air, the clearer track. No problem for old teammates. Michael slips through, dives down the inside, doesn't lose any time in that overtaking or that lapping maneuver on the earth.
So he goes through 5.5 seconds. There is Montoya just coming through the shot. Schumacher, Michael that is, 5.5 seconds ahead of brother Ralf, as the two of them still push as hard as possible at this stage in the race. Montoya in 9th place, but still having to stay ahead of Michael Schumacher if possible as he cuts his way through the traffic. 1 minute 17.0 from Montoya on that last lap. Quick note to Alan McNish, not particularly quick on that last lap, but he has been lapping very quickly. He's just right at the back because of his problems on the opening lap.
And this battle continues for 3rd place. Truly still holding off David Coulthard. Coulthard seemingly unable to find the momentum out of the corner, out of the pit straight. Turn 13, that uphill corner. He just doesn't have the drive or the horsepower to do anything about Jarno Trulli's Renault.
And this battle, John, between the McLarens and the Renaults, allowing for reliability, will all come down to how much fuel they started the race with, how long they have to stop for when they make their stop, and getting back out again. And you can see that we've completed 31 laps, 32 laps now. In fact, the leader's just gone over the line. 32 laps completed, 39 laps left to go. We're getting towards that half-distance mark, but some of these guys will have started with a very heavy tank of fuel and go quite a long way beyond half-distance before they have to stop.
And that's very much determined by 2 factors. One, in principle, is your tyre situation, and secondly, the other is about how much fuel you can actually take on board. And at one stage, 2 or 3 years ago, teams were building cars with fairly small tanks until they realised that they were handicapping themselves. Build a big tank, oh, it may have some limitations in other areas, but it gives you more strategy, more advantages when it comes to the race.
So on board with Kimi Räikkönen. This wonderful view from just behind the front wing. Let's just ride with him a moment as he comes up across the start-finish area. Drops downhill into the left-hander. Hear the traction control working, and then the power coming in from that Mercedes V10 engine.
Well, these 4 are having a ding-dong, so is Mika Salo. He's having a great battle with Nick Heidfeld. That's his battle for 7th place, just behind this row of 4 cars, and there's only 0.6 of a second between the Toyota in 7th place, or 8th place, and Heidfeld Sauber in 7th.
Well, that's a good battle to watch, and in fact those two are being hunted down by Montoya, although he's a long way behind. Bit of a mistake there from Jenson Button, got a bit out of shape, managed to gather it all up, but again you can see how hard they're trying.
5.4 seconds. The gap suddenly stalled out. It was coming down by lumps and chunks, but now just at 5.4 seconds, Michael Schumacher, Ralf Schumacher, back into a clear air situation as we see race leader come up, just overtaken Pedro de la Rosa, a lap down for de la Rosa.
Michael Schumacher then, let's see what lap times he can do. Montoya doing a similar lap times, in fact, to both Michael Schumacher and Ralf Schumacher, 1st and 2nd. The pace doesn't seem to be that different between the Ferrari and the Williams BMW at this point in the race. But what's going to happen when it comes time to stop? Who can go that bit deeper? Who won't have to put quite so much fuel on board? We'll have to wait and see.
Critical here for Ralf Schumacher not to overrun Pedro de la Rosa as they come down through the Magulu. Now get on the brakes. Ralph, be careful, pick up the throttle. You've got horsepower, you've got the drive. Pedro de la Rosa will be aware that he's about to go a lap down. He was being very generous indeed to other drivers when he was being lapped. He's quite a long way behind though with De La Rosa. De La Rosa may be able to sneak through turn 1, or he may opt to let him go, let Schumacher know he's not. It's going to be De La Rosa's corner.
Yes, and maybe Ralph can now line him up. Oof, gets a bit sideways on the curve there. Try and line him up for the next hairpin, but that little mistake might drop him back too far.
That's the whole key. Michael Schumacher on the same lap. Lap 34 went quickest. 1:15.601, personal quickest lap, I should say.
Yeah, another quick lap.
leader.
Yeah, quick lap indeed from Michael Schumacher. 5.9 seconds, the gap between himself. Now this is where Ralph needs to get through quickly. They're now into the twisty section of track, and you don't want to get stuck behind someone in this part of the track because it's very difficult to overtake until you come back round to start-finish area, and this is where Michael has the chance to pull away slightly.
And let's have a look and see, has he got through? Yes, no, he hasn't. Now Ralph dives down the inside. De La Rosa, well, I mean, he couldn't have done very much more. He would have had to have literally lifted off the throttle and waited over a second for Ralf Schumacher to come through. It went wrong here for Ralph because he didn't really get the momentum up. Then into turn 1, he got all out of shape because he was watching De La Rosa rather than watching what he was doing himself. Montoya continues his progress now, 7.7 seconds behind Mika Salo in 8th place.
Let's see what the gap is this time as they come across the line. It's gone out a bit more, 6.8 seconds. Then the gap between Michael Schumacher and Ralph in the Williams. Trulli is still in 3rd place in the Renault. Coulthard in 4th, but they're a long, long way behind the top 2.
You saw Montoya just go round the descent of the Lago. There's Michael Schumacher. So the distance between leader and Montoya, currently running in 9th place, is a little more than about 4 seconds.
That's right, but they're doing the same sort of lap times. In fact, on that last lap, Montoya had a clearer run, and he was faster than Michael Schumacher. Take a look at Montoya, charging, attacking. After the new front wing was fitted, he has certainly moved up the order, but he's some 7.7 seconds behind that very tight battle between Heidfeld and Salo for 7th position.
And there's this battle continuing along for 3rd place between Jarno Trulli and David Coulthard, and immediately behind it is Jenson Button and Kimi Räikkönen. And then Michael Schumacher comes across the line at the end of this lap. We will be just over half distance, lap 36. As again we go on board with Coulthard, not able to get himself into position. Traffic up ahead, and that's Mark Webber. So that's maybe an opportunity for Coulthard if Jarno Trulli finds himself slightly compromised by the Australian.
Well, we'll have to wait and see on that one. Still waiting for the leaders, and Michael Schumacher's just set a new fastest lap. Waiting for the leaders to make their pit stop. They're all looking to be on a 1 pit stop strategy, and the only people really on a 2 pit stops are further down the order at the moment. People like Villeneuve, who made a stop, Sato, who stopped early as well. But most of these front runners, it's definite, are on 1 stop. The question is, how far into the race will they go before they make that 1 stop?
And Mark Webber in the Minardi did a great job to get out of the way. He literally pulled off track onto the dirty line to let Trulli and Coulthard go through. And that really is what you expect from a driver running in the position of Webber. And well done, Mark. You used your mirrors. An intelligent drive.
Ralf Schumacher not getting his way through the traffic quickly enough. 7.6 seconds behind his brother now. We're riding on board with David Coulthard, still trying to find a way past Jarno Trulli. But tell you what, Trulli's doing a great job here in the race, John. Some people have criticised him for not being consistent enough in the races, but he's doing everything asked of him here.
Yes, they've got Felipe Massa ahead of them. But really, I wonder just how fast David Coulthard could have gone if he'd been ahead of the Renault. Of course, the problem is he's not. It's almost irrelevant, but I'm sure after the race there will be some comment that David said, I'm sure I was quicker than the Renault, but I couldn't find the way past. Sounds a contradiction to me.
Well, we'll have to see if that's the story afterwards. There's Montoya in shot, and there is Michael Schumacher, the two of them who made contact once again on the first lap here in Brazil. And now Montoya has to make sure he doesn't get lapped. It's unlikely because they're lapping at pretty much the same speed. What a great battle it could have been. It could have been a 3-way battle rather than a 2-way battle that it is at the moment between Michael and Ralph. And I say it's a 2-way battle, but the gap between them is still 8.1 seconds.
And we're seeing a real tour de force. I mean, a drive of supreme quality from Michael Schumacher. He's extended the gap once again. It came down to under 6 seconds, back up to 8.1. Michael Schumacher putting in fastest lap after lap. 16.363 was his last lap. Brother Ralph, well, I don't know he's made of quite the same stuff as Michael is. I think that Michael is that much more special than Ralph, and Ralph is proving to be pretty special in himself.
This is another fast lap from Michael Schumacher coming up, although Ralph Schumacher quick on the middle sector, but this is likely to be a new fastest lap from Michael Schumacher. 1:16.235. Indeed, it's a new fastest lap, but what's his brother going to do? It's going to be another quick one from the Williams BMW driver, a 1:16.5, 0.3 of a second slower, so the gap still opens out between them as the fuel load burns off, and one or two more pit stops being prepared. Toyota getting ready now.
Yes, but also you see Montoya, he's closing down to Mika Salo and Nick Heidfeld, and in the meantime Michael Schumacher is coming up to, well, ideally for Schumacher, put a lap on Montoya. Wouldn't that be sweet? But the Ferrari pit is ready, and Michael Schumacher will be the only Ferrari making a pit stop here this afternoon.
Yes, it does look as though Ferrari are beginning to prepare. They are. Ferrari are getting ready in pit lane now for Michael Schumacher's pit stop. Now, how much further than this will Williams be able to go? We're just over the halfway distance point, but the question is, can Ralph do anything? He just doesn't quite seem to have the pace of his brother at the moment, and it's a question of how much fuel they started with and how long he'll have to sit in the pit lane to be refueled.
And this is also, remember, the first race for Ferrari's F2002. That's the designated number of the car. Schumacher comes, now he's going to make the cut into pit lane. He'll come in at racing speed. All of a sudden he'll be on the brakes. There's a signal to the right that says 80 kilometers per hour. Ralph Schumacher, for the first time this afternoon, Ben, is going to take over the lead.
He is indeed. And Mika Salo came in at the same time. You just saw a car ahead. That was Mika Salo coming into the pits. And a brand new set of unscrubbed Bridgestones going on board. Now, how much fuel, how much longer is it going to take to get the fuel in? They're clearing out the side pods. 12.6 seconds. Well, that's pretty much what you'd expect on a single stop for Ferrari. I wonder if Williams will have to put a little less fuel in. Depends if they started any heavier than that. We'll wait and see. 12.6 seconds stationary, and it all looks clean as he comes out, get through the pit lane exit safely, and out he comes once again.
We'll wait to see how far into the race. Schumacher almost overrunning. Now, don't go over that line, Michael. Until now, you're okay. You can pull out. No, and Salo just goes to the left or to the right.
Oh, he doesn't know he's there, does he?
Oh. He does now.
That gave him a little bit of a scare. But as you can see, the amount in the Ferrari, enough to make it through to the end of the race. And that's, as we'd expected, a one-stop for him. But when will Ralf Schumacher come in? Also waiting for Montoya, who's moved up to 8th place overall.
The question now is, how fast can Ralf Schumacher run? He wasn't really being impeded by anybody ahead of him. It was only the back markers. Michael Schumacher really was the quickest car on the circuit. Ralph has push. He'll be told by the pits he's got to make it as far as he can. The deeper they can go, of course, the shorter their time will be at a standstill in the pits. They're the Williams team. They're sitting back. It's a bit of a Sunday afternoon for them. No Easter eggs right now, but if they win, no doubt there will be.
Well, let's wait and see what happens. A 16.370 lap there from Ralf Schumacher. That's pretty good. Not quite the fastest overall, though. Michael Schumacher still with the fastest lap in this race so far. And we'll see whether he can hold onto that at a 1:16.235, set just before he came in to make his one and only pit stop. Montoya, meanwhile, only 1.2 seconds behind Heidfeld as they went round last time.
Be interesting to watch what Michael Schumacher does in his first flying lap as we go back to this battle for third place. Jarno Trulli still able very comfortably to keep David Coulthard behind him, and Kimi Raikkonen now has got ahead of Jenson Button, so has been a change for 5th place. McLaren's now 4th and 5th.
Right, yes, at last. Kimi Raikkonen has managed to find his way past that Renault of Jenson Button, and now closing up to his teammate. And you can see the muck on David Coulthard's car as he's been sitting in the slipstream of Jarno Trulli for lap after lap after lap, and he still can't find a way through. Now, when are these guys going to stop? Surely it won't be too long now.
Well, Coulthard again looks threatening with Jarno Trulli, but at a part of track he can really do very little with. You can see the helmet on Coulthard, where there's been oil vapor coming out of the back of the Renault, and it's just, you know, it's a problem for a driver. You've got rip-offs on your visor, but you know, if you get so much oil, you run out of rip-offs, then you have an opaque visor, visibility is awful.
Let me just tell you, Montoya has just got past Nick Heidfeld, so that puts Montoya into 7th position now, and that puts him about 15 seconds off this group, if you like, this battle that's going on between the Renaults and the McLarens, off the back of the group at least. So Montoya still charging.
And there, the Williams team projector position says that Montoya is capable, at the pace he can run at, of getting 3rd place in this race. Who'd have thought at the end of the first lap, Montoya almost flat last, could finish up 3rd.
Oh, off goes Alex Young. And where's that around the track? It's down at the turn 4. He's gone wide, and I think he's managed to get back on again, actually. Well, we'll keep an eye on that one. Alex has had 1 or 2 spins, it has to be said. Ralf Schumacher still out there, still not heading for the pit lane by the looks of things.
His lap, Michael's lap, was half a second slower than Ralf Schumacher's fastest lap, or last lap. Now that is not enough in my view. Michael has got new tyres, but he's got a lot of fuel on board. That's a lot of weight, and in my view Ralf needs to extend that advantage. He's got 23.4 seconds. You're going to need something like minimum 34, 35. Peter Windsor told us 42 seconds for a pit stop. Now, depending on the amount of fuel you need to take on board, that can be flexible. Last year, David Coulthard had the fastest pit stop in 33.037. That sounds like a little bit of fuel. Quick tyres, back out. So the best you can hope for is 33 seconds.
And that's not going to be enough, is it, John? With a gap between the two of them, as you see there, of 23.9 seconds. Ralf is and off goes McNish. Alan McNish in the Toyota has had a spin at turn 4. Trying to listen up on the radio. Oh, and he stalled it.
Has he stalled it?
Oh,
yeah. No.
What a shame for Alan McNish.
Is this going to be a safety car situation?
CDS, Alan, CDS. No time now.
Stuck in a not very pleasant part of the circuit, a very quick down into turn 4, and look, you can see one of the Minardis came down and tried to get out of the way and actually got onto the dirty part of track.
Meanwhile, Montoya's in the pits. Let me tell you, Juan Pablo Montoya has come into the pits on this, the 43rd lap. This was what happened to Alan McNish. Well, watch to see what happened to... Oh, and it just broke away very viciously as he went into the corner.
Was that the result of his pit stop, or was that something else? Certainly, his rear brake appeared to lock on.
Meanwhile, look, there's Montoya just coming out 9.6 seconds, so they didn't have to put as much fuel in as the Ferrari.
McNish trying to... Oh, no, Massa's gone off.
Felipe Massa, that is, who's taken off.
Turn 4 as well.
Oh dear, it's all going wrong for him. He was down in 14th position for the Brazilian, and, well, has he kept that one running?
I don't think so. Sorry, it's not. I'm still looking at the red sector, which is McNish. Massa's up at turn 5 into Ferradura, and there you see that he's on that high grip. There we look, a battle. Oh, was there contact there or not?
Oh, this was all very close.
Yes, there was.
And that was with Mark Webber. Mark Webber was battling for position there, trying to get into 14th, and there was contact between them. Now, some more pit stops coming up here. Williams look ready to take Ralf Schumacher in, and Renault are making a pit stop as well. In the pits at the moment is Jarno Trulli. There he is. We can see Jarno now being refueled, and this is crucial in their battle with McLaren. That was a good quick stop for Jarno Trulli, but this is the crucial one. Ralf Schumacher with a 24-second advantage comes in, but surely it won't be enough to get out in front of Michael. Watch the fuel go on board. 12.5 litres per second. It would take you only 4 seconds to fill up a normal road car with the amount of fuel that goes so quickly into these machines. Out he comes, but Michael's already driving past.
Indeed he is, and also Ralf has to do 50 miles an hour all the way down the pit lane until he gets... Once he makes this descent, then he can get up to speed. But Michael Schumacher has regained. Ralf almost lost it in the pit lane. Michael Schumacher regains the lead as Ralf accelerates down the pit lane, rejoins the track. The gap, probably not a great deal of difference to where it was. In fact, if anything, it's maybe marginally closer than prior to Michael Schumacher making his pit stop.
Yes, I think, they've done a good job, but it's Michael all over this race. It's all about putting those laps together in the mid part of the race, early to mid part, where he's just been flat out the whole time. He never backs off. He doesn't make mistakes, and even when he does, he gets away with them with his reactions and car control. And that is classic Michael Schumacher. It's been a brilliant drive. Into the pits now, Jenson Button. A little bit slow just getting the fuel hose out, but remember, that fuel hose weighs about 60 kilograms. It's very, very heavy indeed, but they managed to get it out, and he's back into the race.
Ben, Ralf Schumacher took a calculated 83 litres of fuel as opposed to the 92 for Michael Schumacher as we get back on board with Jarno Trulli.
So, how's this going to settle down? The two McLarens, John, still to come in. They haven't stopped, so we're, well, they nearly have, because there they are, indeed, getting ready to accept one of the McLarens. Coulthard's very quick on this lap, and this could be the opportunity for them to come in and then stay ahead. If they can just put in a couple of quick laps here, they might be able to get themselves out ahead of Jarno Trulli. That's the key.
Coulthard. Coulthard first of the McLarens into the pits. Coulthard also quick on that in lap. You see him come up at 50 miles an hour, 80 kilometers per hour. Seems an interminable amount of time. McLaren choosing to go very, very late and deep into the race. Again, the amount of fuel they have to take on board probably comparable to that of Ralf Schumacher in somewhere in the middle, 80 litres. But here is Jarno Trulli coming back, and Coulthard leaves the pit 10.2 seconds. I think that Jarno Trulli will actually retain his third place. Coulthard's stop, I don't think will be quick enough to see him get back out on track and keep third place. Here comes Trulli. Coulthard in the pit lane.
It's going to be a close one, though. Let's watch them as they come down the hill here. There is Coulthard coming out of the pit, and of course
he's got it done.
Yeah, it looks like it, building up to speed, and it looks like Coulthard and McLaren have won this little battle. He's got ahead of the Renaults. What a great piece of work. That's what they've been trying to achieve. But don't forget, Raikkonen is yet to stop. He'll be coming in next time around, and he was right with David, so there could still be quite a battle when Raikkonen rejoins between the two McLaren teammates.
Very close indeed. Great job by both teams. That 10.2 second stop of Coulthard, I was, well, convinced it wasn't going to be quick enough, but clearly I was wrong. Now we wait for Kimi Raikkonen to come in for his stop of the afternoon. Raikkonen currently showing in third place. He's some 24 seconds behind Ralf Schumacher, who's 2.7 seconds behind race leader Raikkonen in the pits.
He put in a quick lap the lap before this one, a 16.8. That's one of the quicker laps we've seen from the McLaren so far. So Kimi knows the score. You have to push as hard as possible when you've got some clear air before your pit stop. Now a scrubbed set of Michelins going on board. The fuel hose, 9.4 seconds. This could get him out ahead of David Coulthard.
Yes, half a second, 0.6 of a second faster than Coulthard. So as he makes his way down the pits, so slow, but that's the mandatory speed limit, 50 miles an hour, 80 k's per hour. Now there's the Benetton coming around turn one. There's Raikkonen, second car of those two.
Yeah, that's Coulthard first, of course. Watch out for Coulthard. That's the battle. There's Raikkonen rejoining. There's Coulthard on the outside. This is an important battle between these two, and Raikkonen sensibly slots in behind Coulthard.
And what we thought might be the case, that both McLarens were capable of running marginally faster than both Renaults. The pit stop's probably very similar, but the difference was Renault stopped earlier. It gave Raikkonen and Coulthard that opportunity to get a couple of quick laps in to give them that margin.
So, well, it's moved Coulthard up into third position overall. Raikkonen now in fourth position. Trulli in fifth place. Button in sixth, and Montoya now 14 seconds behind Jenson Button. That's going to be the interesting battle now, to watch Montoya and see whether he can close up to this group of McLarens and Renaults, and whether he's got the pace to be able to catch up and pass in the remaining 24 laps. And the other thing, does that 2002 Ferrari have the legendary Ferrari reliability of recent seasons?
Well, I just wonder now, we're going to see a battle going on between Coulthard and Raikkonen. The gap has increased marginally. David pulled away about a tenth of a second. Raikkonen, of course, on 4 points from his third place in Australia. David Coulthard yet to score this season.
Up the hill comes Michael Schumacher. The gap between himself and Ralf last time was only 2.6 seconds. Now let's just see what they're lapping at relative to one another here. A 16.8 for Michael, a 16.9 for Ralf. It's still so evenly matched between these two cars. The Ferrari and the Williams BMW, so close in terms of lap times, and still Michael with the advantage. You just again saw Montoya going through the picture ahead, and he's still some 13.7 seconds off Jenson Button.
Unless one of these two drivers makes an error, the only thing that's going to bring them closer, in my view, will be traffic. Whether Michael meets it first or whether it gets Ralf is the one that suffers.
It's going to be tough, I think, for Montoya to catch Jenson Button, you know, in time over the remainder of this race, but I'm sure he'll be pushing hard all the way. And there is 23 laps to go, and the Renault still running quickly. 1 minute 17.198 last time around, compared to Montoya on a 1:16.882. Riding on board with Ralf Schumacher, though, here in second position.
Fuel switch confirmed. 10-4 Mike can also be a yacht position.
Well, a little bit of garbling on the radio, but hopefully that's not distracting Ralf Schumacher. Let's see the gap this time around as he comes across the line. Again, 2.3 seconds, and this time a fraction faster. 0.4 faster, actually, for Ralf, but then, of course, Michael had some traffic to deal with just there, getting past Alex Young, I think he has, just passed.
But this is maybe one of the rare occasions we're going to see the Schumacher brothers battle for victory. We did get a glimpse of something a few years ago in the Spanish Grand Prix where Michael and Ralf went side by side round two of the corners near the completion of the lap to such a degree that it allowed Barrichello to slip through and get position. And it was as if Michael and Ralf refused to yield to one another. Well, they're not close enough to that, but this lap it is getting closer, currently 2.3 seconds. Yeah, it's probably about the same.
Well, if it carries on like this, it'll be very much a Schumacher battle at the top of the points table. Montoya down in 7th at the moment. The team reckon he could get up to 3rd, but I think that's going to be quite a struggle here this afternoon. And it's bad news for Montoya in his championship challenge. And we could well see a battle between the two brothers for the battle, certainly in the early stages of this season. Coulthard looking good at the moment, but oh dear, I don't want to say anything about David. He's had so much bad luck so far this year. At the moment he's running in 3rd place, Raikkonen his teammate in 4th, Trulli and Button for Renault running in 5th and 6th places, Montoya 7th, Heidfeld 8th, then Mika Salo 9th, Takuma Sato in 10th position, and he's just come back out after his 2nd pit stop.
Well, the ebb and flow of this battle for the lead. A 10th of a second here, lost somewhere else. Ralf Schumacher not making any substantial impression on his brother. Both drivers on the limit, but you have to think that the equipment that Ralf has is on the day superior. What we're seeing from Michael Schumacher is something which really I didn't anticipate. The thought that Juan Pablo Montoya was going to really run away from the field and supported by Ralf Schumacher was the favourite outcome, but Michael Schumacher is just, well, just continues, never stops impressing.
Pump on, but it's okay, the two ways.
Oh, it's all gone wrong for Eddie Irvine. Look at the smoke coming from the back of that. That surely isn't right.
Well, they said turn the oil pump on. At the point, Irvine complied with that instruction from the pits. We got a puff of what looked like oil smoke to me, but, you know, maybe it was just a little drip at the point where it was turned on.
Yeah, maybe turning the oil pump on caused that smoke. Maybe he is going to be all right. He's currently running in 10th position. Sato, as I mentioned, have just stopped, so he's dropped down the order again. He's down into 13th position as we look at the live super slow-mo and watch the Ferrari in action.
But Ben, the gap is now down to 1.9 seconds. The first time we have dipped below the 2-second barrier. And Ralf is now beginning to pick up the pace. 0.3 of a second faster on lap 51 of 71.20 to go.
Wow, it's certainly still a motor race here between the two Schumachers. The gap between 1st and 2nd, just under 2 seconds, as you watch Michael Schumacher throwing that Ferrari 2002 car through the first Senna S corner here in Brazil. And there you could see just caught a glimpse of the Williams going through as well. That's how close they were as they went through that first corner.
Jenson Button still under pressure further back as we again see that lead begin to shrink. Ralf Schumacher is putting pressure on this. Michael Schumacher, just having used the Ferrari so much, putting so much pressure on his Bridgestone tyres that they're beginning to say, look, I can't take any more. Ralf sensing that he's got Michael on the run, beginning to close that gap. It's slight every lap, but there are plenty of laps remaining. When they come across the line, there will be 19 to go.
Across the line they come, and the lap times this time as Michael Schumacher at 1:16.8, another 1:16.4 from Ralf. He's been very consistent the last few laps. The last 3 laps have all been 1:16.4, and he's gained about 0.4 every lap. So he's closing 1.5 seconds, the gap between the two of them now.
Well, two people who know these boys better than any will be the Schumacher parents, and I can't imagine what they're thinking sitting watching this. They've seen them grow up. The difference in age is not really a problem. But when they get together, if this gap comes down to less than half a second, we're going to have one of the most exciting Grand Prix finishes, I think, ever on our hands.
He's still closing that first sector, 0.3 of a second faster than Michael Schumacher. And Michael is struggling surely a little bit there, isn't he? He looks a little bit off the pace. I think he's okay, just through that left-hander. But that first sector, certainly Ralph closing the gap up just a bit more.
And I think by the time we see these two cars come back across start-finish line, that gap is going to be closer to 1 second than 1.5, which is what it was when they went across the line, lap 52, coming up to complete lap 53.
Michael a little faster through the middle sector, in fact, so he was okay through that section, but Jean Todt, oh, he doesn't know quite what to make of this. Across the line this time, the gap is going to be much the same, I think. Well, another 1/10 of a second gained by Ralf Schumacher. Oh, this is great. This is what we want to see, real battling between these two top teams. We thought it was going to be Montoya versus Michael Schumacher today, but Ralf really pushing hard.
And good news is the only car ahead of them is actually Juan Montoya. It takes another 3 or 4 corners before we see Trulli, Button, Coulthard and Raikkonen, but they're about, well, half a mile away. Montoya will be running similar pace to the two lead cars, so for the next 15, 10 so laps, we should see a pure battle between the Schumacher brothers.
Yes, indeed, and let's see whether Ralf can keep it all smooth, keep it controlled. He certainly was a little bit scrappy there.
Yeah, he really ran into the corner very late in the brakes, had to gather it all up, lost maybe a half a tenth or something. But nonetheless, shows you the commitment and the pressure both drivers are applying to each other.
It's good stuff, isn't it, as the Ferrari that they brought here, especially for this race, tries to be quicker. Again, Michael is a fraction faster through the midsection of the track. Again, Ralf was faster over the opening sector of the track. And on this final sector, let's just watch as they come across the line again this time. Michael across the line first, and Ralf again closes the gap fractionally. He's slightly faster on that final sector.
Well, behind Pablo Montoya, of course, he's ahead of Michael Schumacher and Ralf Schumacher, but he's the next car up. They will see him as he enters turn 4. They'll be coming out of turn 3.
Still a long way behind Jenson Button. He's 10.1 seconds off Jenson Button, but on the last lap, he gained some 0.6 of a second, so he is closing up. And the question is whether he's got enough time to make up that 10-second disadvantage.
The problem for him is that the cars that are immediately ahead of him, the 4 cars, are all on Michelin tyres, so there's no advantage from a tyre point of view for Juan Pablo Montoya. And of course he's having to drive knowing that all that went on in the first lap, you've got to put that out of your mind. You've got to focus on what is ahead of you. He's got the potential. It's marginal to get 1 point. If he gets 1 point, he might have the momentum to go on and take 2 points, because Jarno Trulli is only 1.5 seconds ahead of Jenson Button. Don't worry about
yeah, that
Mark
was just,
Webber.
That's right, Mark Webber there. He's down in 14th place behind the 2 Renaults. But now this is interesting. What was all this about?
Trulli's got his hand out of the cockpit. I don't know what he's waving at, but looking down and seeing Trulli's looking at, well, his...
Somebody going very slowly there that he was passing, didn't quite spot who that was. The new fastest lap from Ralf Schumacher. He's got the gap to under 1 second now between himself and the Ferrari. This battle is well and truly on, as again he closes up. 16.224, that is the new fastest lap of the race.
And just watch the different body language of the Ferrari and the Williams. Ferrari on Bridgestone tyres, the Williams on the Michelin tyre, the tyre that really was the dominant tyre throughout the qualifying. Only on Friday morning did we see Bridgestone looking very, very strong. Since then it has gone all Michelin's way until the race, and only because of Michael Schumacher. Rubens Barrichello did a blinding job, but on a very light load of fuel, and then all of a sudden retirement came, and we are still waiting to see the reason for that retirement. But now Ralf Schumacher getting close as he needs to at this part of track. He doesn't need to run any closer. He will hurt himself. It's here that he can make best use of his traction, well, the turn in the traction and the power of the BMW.
Yeah, this is where he wants the horsepower.
You are free to use the boost button. You can use the boost button.
Well, you heard it right here on Digital F1. You can use the boost button, Ralf, he's being told, and I'm sure he will, given half a chance.
And I think that relates to just upping the rev limiter rather than having something like a big turbocharger with an extra boost. So Ralf now been given the okay from the pits to go, 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 as Michael Schumacher is only 0.6 of a second. That was across the line. It probably will fluctuate marginally. It's actually more difficult now for Ralf Schumacher running this close to his brother than it was to catch him.
Yes, this is the difficult bit now, running in the dirty air behind the Ferrari. The aerodynamics of his own car messed up effectively and making the car slide around that little bit more. This is why he needs that engine to power him up the hill so well. But don't forget, this new Ferrari engine, it's the first time we've seen this new Ferrari engine in action. It's doing a pretty good job.
I think Ralf Schumacher is going to have only one opportunity to overtake his brother. That will be a long pit straight in front of both the Williams and Ferrari team garages. He must get himself into position. It's so critical down through the Maguro corner. Coming up into turn 13, easy on the brakes, get the turn in right, get the power on, use the grip, use the drive.
Yes, but is he close enough? He's still a long way behind as they climb up the hill. And this is where he needs to be closing, and he's not closing enough. 0.6 of a second last time around. Really now the gap is not so significant. It's more a question of track position as he tries to find a way past.
Michael gets a little bit wide and loose in turn 1. Here's a chance for Ralf to pick up the momentum. Ralf maybe didn't quite anticipate it as quickly as he should have done. Michael will know that he was under pressure. He did make a mistake. Watch his head, check the mirrors as they come down into turn 4.
This is great stuff. There's 6.5 years difference between them in age.
Will be effective now. He is right at 18. Last lap.
There is a huge amount of difference in terms of experience. Michael has won 54 Grand Prix and Ralf has won only 4, but he wants to beat his brother. They've always been competitive from their karting days. They still go karting together and they still want to beat each other. And now Ralf has a chance to pass the Ferrari.
In the meantime, Juan Pablo Montoya, also running in fairly clear air, has only one car ahead of him. That's Jenson Button, 8.3 seconds away.
We just want to use the boost limiter to get to really good style on it.
Trying to listen up on the radio a little bit and take a look here on that last lap, John. A little bit of that mistake from Michael Schumacher.
Yeah, again, in that turn, misses the apex, probably by a good 2 meters. Ralf, you can see how much he gained as he came through, but I think he almost was caught unawares by Michael making that little error.
Montoya has just put in a quick lap, his personal best, but not the fastest lap of the race. It's closed him to within 7.5 seconds of Jenson Button in the battle for 6th, but it's the battle for the lead that we're watching so closely.
And strangely, the gap on that last lap, even in spite of Michael making an error, has widened to back over a second, 1.1 seconds. So maybe Ralf was slightly unsettled by what happened to Michael, and in his own momentum just got, what's going on?
All comes down to the tyre wear as well. And in fact, in the earlier stint of this race, it did appear Ralf couldn't lap as quickly as the Ferrari towards the end of his stint on the tyres. I wonder if that's going to be a factor as we get into the closing stages of this race. Well, lap after lap, Michael Schumacher just ahead of his brother Ralf. David Coulthard is some 55 seconds behind this battle in running in 3rd place. Raikkonen in 4th, just behind him. And then, of course, Trulli and Button for Renault. Montoya is some 7.4 seconds off them. Mika Salo is 8th, Irvine 9th, De La Rosa 10th. Both Jags running reliably again. Villeneuve is 11th, ahead of Heidfeld 12th. Sato in 13th, and Mark Webber and Alex Young are final runners in 14th and 15th places.
Very shortly, Michael and Ralf Schumacher will be coming up to lap Mark Webber for the 2nd time in the Minardi. Montoya, of course, is also ahead of him, but Montoya running at identical pace to the 2 leaders. Montoya now got the distance between himself and Jenson Button down to 6.9 seconds. That one single point this afternoon may well be attainable.
Yes, it may, and of course don't forget that Jenson Button is not that far behind his teammate Jarno Trulli, only 1.2 seconds off his teammate. But let's ride with Ralf. Can he find a little bit more performance? It is so tough once you get to this distance behind another very evenly matched car to try and find a way past. This is where he'd be wishing, well, maybe I wish I had a little bit less wing, perhaps a bit more straight line speed, and then perhaps I could find a way past him. But then, of course, it compromises you somewhere else. Watching David Coulthard here, running in 3rd, ahead of teammate Kimi Raikkonen.
And there'll be many relief faces in the McLaren Mercedes-Benz team to see the 2 cars running. All right, they're not running on the pace. Coulthard some 56 seconds, in fact, behind Michael Schumacher. And Raikkonen running just 1 or 2.3 seconds as it is on this lap behind Coulthard in 4th place. Still with the 2 Renaults of Trulli and Button in 5th and 6th, but it is Juan Pablo Montoya, the man who again sets fastest race lap, who is closing down 5.8 seconds. 12 laps to go of 71 laps.
So Montoya still the man to watch on a charge after the first lap accident between himself and Michael Schumacher. The contact that was made didn't affect Schumacher on this occasion. It took the front wing off Montoya's car, and he's been struggling to get back into the race ever since. Michael Schumacher, though, still has a race on his hands. Oh, and Alex Young has spun yet again from 15th position.
And that's down in just after... yes, that's the penultimate of those very slow, unpronounceable
Brazilian
The
type
Pico de
bonus.
Pato, I think it is, that one. And look at Ralph again, he's got a bit closer.
But Mark Webber once again did a great job. That was the car they were going to have to lap. He was advised by the pits what was coming up. He watched his mirrors, he got off the racing line, out of the way, let these two brothers go at it. They're going at it. You can't get better than this.
It was a good lap last time around from Ralph, and in fact Montoya's just set the fastest first segment time on this next lap as well. So Montoya still flying, trying to close up to Jenson Button. And here we arrive on board with Ralf Schumacher. This is where he needs a good exit. This is where, on the power, he's trying to gain a little more momentum and close up to the back of the Ferrari.
And I bet you one thing, Michael Schumacher is probably very relieved to have his brother behind him and not Juan Pablo Montoya.
Yellow flag at turn one. That's Trulli. Oh, Jarno Trulli, where is the reliability he needed with just 10 laps to go? Oh, and the Italian just never seems to have things go his way at all. A great shame. He'd driven a superb race this afternoon.
And at the same time as Trulli sadly retires, Juan Pablo Montoya once again sets, look, there's the smoke. You can see what happened. Massive, massive engine failure for Jarno Trulli. But this puts Montoya up into 6th place, 4.6 seconds behind Jenson Button, and I'm sure that Button, close enough behind Trulli, will have been maybe unsettled, and he may well have lost momentum, giving Montoya the opportunity to take 2 places in the space of maybe a lap.
Well, we'll keep an eye on that one. The yellow flag still down there at turn 1, which is the worst place in a way, because that's one of the main overtaking opportunities. Although you have to say, we're getting a much clearer comparison between the engine power here today, John. Of course, the new Ferrari engine, it is a wider V angle itself, and it's showing to have great power, but Jarno Trulli, the disappointment of this young man, 27 years old, his 83rd Grand Prix. He's had 1 second place finish in his career, still to win a race, and today he'd driven well, but he's going to get nothing for it.
And there's a yellow flag up in turn 1, so Ralph nowhere near close enough to attempt, but it means that Michael Schumacher also is required to slow down marginally when you go through this area, as so is Ralf Schumacher. No advantage or loss to either driver here.
Back on the power through the quick left-hander, and it doesn't look as though the BMW can outtrack that new Ferrari up the hill, does it? So he's going to have to find some other way of getting past Michael Schumacher. Now, the others still coming around the lap at the moment. We'll wait to see what the gap between the likes of Button and Montoya is, but there's a little time before they come back past us. It was 4.1 seconds last time around.
Yes, Button's last lap after Trulli's blow-up, definitely slower, but interestingly so was Montoya's, because that yellow flag did come out. They had to slow down. Both drivers did slow down. They were the two that probably lost out most, because they were the 2 drivers that were closest to Trulli's blow-up.
He might need reminding to use the boost limiter. He was into the trumpet limiter the last lap.
And we're hearing on the radio, interesting once again, you know the teams are monitoring, they can monitor exactly what the engine revs are all the time.
Use the boost limiter to get closer to him.
And they're just reminding Ralph to use that boost limiter. And as you said, John, it ups the revs that he can use that little bit more. They have a set rev limit, and take a look here in the super slow-mo live as they come into turn 1.
Just look at the tyre again, watching the tyre deflect.
A little bit wide. Oh, a good shot there of the brakes. Just to do that, by the way. That's when they get really... The coefficient of friction goes up massively with heat with the carbon fibre discs.
But it's definitive on the boost button.
Yes, we've
just
got
come in to my left ear, and it is. You can use more revs if you like.
Okay, so it raises the rev limiter. So when you heard him say the boost limiter, what it means is it actually raises the limit on the engine a few hundred revs more, and he's not on the limiter so early. Cutting their way through back markers now. This is turning out to be a fantastic battle. Thrilling cat and mouse game now. 8 laps to go. Ralph has been given the all clear to use the boost button. You can do what you like, Ralph. Go for it, you know. This is your big chance, a big race against your brother for a Grand Prix. It's a legitimate race. They're not in the same team. There's nothing that says that one must give way to the other.
Well, if Michael holds this is going to be a real bonus ball for Ferrari, isn't it? Because, you know, new car, Brazil does seem to be a bit of a bugbear for them. They don't, you know, always feel their cars perform well here. So, if this is the worst they think they're going to do, next race Michael could do even better.
Okay.
For those of you listening at home, that was an attempt at a joke. This is like, you know, the following race, we kind of expect Michael to maybe go even further into the distance. What do you think?
Well, if you want to watch this all the way from the cockpit of the BMW, then you can just flick to button 6, and there you are, sitting in the car with Ralf Schumacher, staring at the back end of one of the world's greatest racing drivers in one of the world's greatest cars, but is at the moment looking a little bit threatened. So we flick to 18, which looked like the pit of Minardi.
Well, Montoya's got, he's 2.5 seconds behind Jensen now for that 5th place with 7 laps to go, and he's throwing in some fast times. Mind you though, Jensen's responding. Jensen's just putting his overall best time of the race. 16.7.
That will not go unnoticed. That's
buttons on button 4. There you go.
Button on button 4. Okay. Meanwhile, slow-mo of a very nasty moment there for Kimi Räikkönen, who can't be too pleased with that. But that's what we saw Michael doing earlier in the race, isn't it, Perry? So you know,
it's just pushing,
exactly,
isn't it? Just pushing hard. But Montoya's going to want to see a little bit more of that actually, because if we include where he is to Räikkönen, he's only about 7.1 seconds off. Räikkönen's, funny enough, Räikkönen though just putting his fastest middle sector time after doing that.
They've all decided they're going to make a last-ditch attempt to maintain their place or improve their place. Montoya could have done without Jensen. Button decided that now's the time to hang on to his 6th place. He's raised the game and actually did a quicker lap time than Montoya on the previous lap. And so the gap stays the same, 2 seconds between Montoya and Button.
But Button now closing on, but he's just taking him actually. Don't know how much it delayed him, but...
Well, thrilling battle going through the grid all the way now, including all the way from 3rd place down to 6th place for the points. These guys have been fighting every inch of the way. Brilliant pit stops by...
Just saw 3 laps pop up on the screen there. That's the prediction for when Montoya will catch Button.
Yeah, well, I made a prediction on the basis that Button was going to carry on doing the lap times he had previously been doing, which he didn't. He magnificently raised his game and kept that gap at 2 seconds between himself and Montoya. Not about to take it sitting down. Is that Sato? It must be Sato doing, just getting involved in the Titanic battle at the front there for a brief moment. Thankfully, not too memorably. And so it goes on. 5 laps to go. Ralf not able to make a significant difference. He needs to get a lot closer than that. He needs to start being all over the back of his brother going into this corner in the last couple of laps if he's going to be in with a shout of winning this race.
Meanwhile,
out of time here, and Williams, who really felt that this track would suit their car, suit their engine and their tyres, are facing the fact that they're being beaten by Ferrari, and they are not going to be happy about it. Of course, Montoya was a part of the battle on the first lap until it all went wrong and they had that contact. It could have been a different story, perhaps, if Montoya had got ahead at that point, but it didn't happen, and Ralf, despite being fast, just can't quite get close enough to the back of that Ferrari to find a way through.
Well, I think I agree with all you say, Ben, but there's one special factor that has got that Ferrari in the lead, and I don't think there's any other driver in the world right now is capable of doing what Michael Schumacher. He's got tyres that are considered to be not as good on this track on the day as the Michelin. He's got a brand new car, which is probably not quite as powerful as BMW, yet there he is dominating this race and leading it 2 or 4 laps to go.
Here's the battle, though, as we watch Jensen Button come across the line now, running in 5th place, and Juan Pablo Montoya has him very much within his sights at 1.2 seconds, the gap between them. Let's ride on board with Montoya. Watch the gap. See if the car we're riding with can close up that little bit more to the Renault ahead. Heading down towards turn 4. High top speed here, then late on the brakes. Oh, and somebody's off in the gravel over there.
It's Raikkonen,
It's
I believe.
Raikkonen's gone off. And look, there he is, Raikkonen, who was running in 4th position. He's gone off out of the race. Now, whether that was
His
a problem...
right rear wheel, there's something wobbling in that right rear wheel. You could see as he went across the gravel, it was going this way, left to right, not going. And they're back in the McLaren pits. Shock. But I think there's something with that right rear wheel. If we get a replay of it, we may be able to see something. It certainly did not appear to be moving in a normal fashion.
Well, we'll keep an eye on that, see if we get a replay. But again, it's disappointment for McLaren. And Kimi is not going to finish this race. That puts, of course, Button up into 4th place now. Button into 4th, Montoya into 5th. Mika Salo comes up into 6th in a point-scoring position. Irvine into 7th as we look at the 2 leaders.
Ralph gets very close in turn 13. This time he is, you can see visually closer. The stopwatch will tell you the same now. Coming across start-finish line, 0.6 of a second the last lap. The problem is he's not close enough to pick up any aerodynamic draft as he goes into turn 1. All he is doing is just getting closer, but not close enough.
It's the closest he's been across the line at 0.4 seconds as he came across the line that time. Now remember, the yellows that you can see at the top of the screen there are out at the next corner, turn 4. That is where Raikkonen went off just a moment ago, and the battle between Montoya and Button just 1.3 seconds last time around.
And both drivers are required to go through this segment of the circuit slower than their previous laps.
Yes, that's right. So the stewards keeping an eye on that. Just 2 laps to go, less than 2 laps to go now for Michael Schumacher, who's trying to bring home his 4th victory here at Interlagos. And again, look at Ralph trying to get that little bit closer.
You could see the difference. Ferrari, they were struggling. Michael Schumacher really struggling as Pele comes out with the flag. He's going to wave this race off. Schumacher was struggling. Ralph picked up time, able to hold the car in tighter through the slower corners and the high-speed corners. Not so much difference.
Well, Ralph is definitely running out of time now because they will just have 1 lap to do as he comes across the line this time. Michael Schumacher in the Ferrari, the new car, the car that he pushed so hard that Ferrari should bring here to Brazil. They didn't want to initially, they were going to run the 2001 car. Michael pushed, they've brought it, and he's shown them what he can do with it. This has been a brilliant drive from Michael Schumacher.
And Ralf Schumacher, just to prove that he's not out of this race, even on the last lap, was fastest through that 3rd sector. That's the most important part of this lap. If he's going to get a pass to this Ferrari, the only part of the track that he can do it on merit will be there.
Oh, Villeneuve pulling off the track. He was running in 8th place, and it's all over for Jacques. So close to seeing the checkered flag. That's a great disappointment. Into the lowering sun now, the vision getting a little harder on that infield section, but Michael just has to get it through here safely to record another victory, the 2nd time he will have won for Ferrari, his 4th victory in all, including the 2 wins he drove for Benetton here in Brazil in the mid-90s, and he has shown everybody how to win a motor race today, committed throughout the entire 71 laps.
Pedro de la Rosa just ahead of these 2, but it will not come into play as they come through turn 13 for the final time on a racing lap, but there is not sufficient. Ralf Schumacher, there is no way he can do it.
Michael Schumacher is going to win the 3rd round of the Formula 1 World Championship here at Interlagos in Brazil. The checkered flag waved by Pele from one great sportsman to another. Michael Schumacher takes the victory from Ralf. But let me tell you, the battle on the track still going on between Jenson Button and Juan Pablo Montoya, so we must watch that. This is their last lap still, but the 2 brothers, Michael Schumacher taking the victory just ahead of his younger brother Ralf, showing him how to do it, and Ralf's turn may come another day.
An absolutely outstanding, a brilliant victory for Ferrari, for Michael Schumacher, and look, Jean Todt, he is delighted. We're still waiting for this battle for 4th place to conclude. Button and Montoya right in the middle of the slowest part of the circuit. If we look back to David Coulthard, who's in 3rd place, and he is now assured of his first podium of the year.
His first points of the year,
Michael,
his first finish.
Oh, that was a brilliant drive, Michael. Well done. Well done.
And we actually listening to Ross Brawn there.
Wow, that was a hard piece of work, but you've been fantastic. Really, you've been fantastic. I mean, such an effort for you guys to bring this new car here. I really was worthwhile. Tell me what happened to Rubens, this poor guy.
We had I don't want to say on the TV. We had a technical problem. It was unfortunate. He would have been competitive today. But, yeah, we had a technical problem.
Well, there we go. That is, we're so privileged to listen to that conversation. Ross Brawn and Michael Schumacher, and you could hear the delight in Michael's voice there. Just to confirm, Button managed to beat Montoya across the line by 0.6 seconds. So Coulthard third, Button fourth, Montoya fifth, and Mika Salo again getting the Toyota into the points in sixth. Irvine and De La Rosa seventh and eighth ahead of Sato. Villeneuve classified as 10th, with Mark Webber finishing in 11th.
Well, an outstanding, I mean, just a fantastic drive from Michael Schumacher. I think Ross Brawn's congratulations. Ross does not normally go over the top when he congratulates drivers, but he knows this is a drive of the highest quality you will see at any time in the history of Formula One, under pressure pretty much all the way from his own brother. Ralf Schumacher pushed, I believe had the quicker car on the day. But this man, what would have happened to that collision into turn 4 in the first lap? Michael blocked blatantly, then went back to the middle of the road, but Montoya misjudged the braking, clipped the back of the Ferrari. Amazingly, no damage to the Ferrari whatsoever.
Well, an astonishing performance today from Michael Schumacher, and again, his finishing record here in Brazil continues. He's finished every race he's run here since 1992 on the podium, except for 1 year, 1997, and again the delight for Toyota. Huge congratulations, another point for Toyota in the Constructors' battle, another point for Mika Salo in the Drivers' Championship.
Indeed, a superb job from the Cologne-based team, but also a word of encouragement for Jaguar, because Eddie Irvine was not that far behind, 4.7 seconds of Mika Salo. Pedro de la Rosa further back in 8th place, and maybe for the fans of Jaguar, they've turned the corner.
The points, look at Michael Schumacher's advantage now over his brother Ralph, and Montoya finds himself down in third, a full 10 points behind the championship leader. Jenson Button into 4th place in the series ahead of Raikkonen and David Coulthard, who at last gets his name onto the points board. Eddie Irvine with the 3 points scored in Australia, likewise for Mark Webber. Heidfeld, Malaysia, he scored his 2 points, but Mika Salo with 2 6th places also on 2 points. Those are the scorers, and that's the winner here in Brazil.
And not just a winner here in Brazil, he has been a winner all his life. And their brotherly love, I mean, that was a great battle between the two brothers. But I think on the day it was pretty clear to the world that there was one Schumacher who is a world champion, a multiple world champion, and another Schumacher who could be. But, you know, even with a car which probably on the day was marginally more competitive, it was Michael. He's just, I mean, what you can't come out, there's not enough superlatives to say how brilliant this man is.
Yeah, he was able to push all the time throughout the race. That's what won him the race. It's a combination of so many things with Michael, isn't it, John? It's fitness on one stage. He's one of the fittest drivers out there. Look at this relationship. This is what it's all about. Ross Brawn and Michael Schumacher, the two we heard talking on the radio a moment ago, and that's the strength of their relationship, and that's what's brought so much success to both of them.
I mean, I think that was a fantastic Grand Prix. I mean, to see two brothers, I mean, two competitors, let alone two brothers, battling like that, I mean, on the limit, really making very, very few errors. I saw 1 or 2 from Michael, but that just indicated that he was driving more than his maximum, probably even more than the Bridgestone tyre and the Ferrari chassis were capable of, yet he still wins the Grand Prix by half a second.
The only question mark, I guess, over that first lap with Michael and Montoya. That one will be analysed, of course, and everyone will have a view on it. Michael shutting the door on Montoya, and they took the front wing off his car. But they're the final results after 71 laps, and the gap just half a second between them.
But Ben, we talked about, and it has been talked about, this new ruling. If a driver makes a move which is not satisfactory to the stewards, he could be penalised for the next Grand Prix. We know that they can do something immediately if it is severe enough. If it is as marginal as that one was, they have got the right to bring in Michael Schumacher and Juan Pablo Montoya. Look at the tapes again. Speak to both the drivers, and if they decide that there was somewhat of an unfair second move from Michael, they could, in theory, penalise him 10 places for the next Grand Prix.
Well, that certainly would make life interesting if that happens, and they do have that opportunity to review the evidence, as you say. I'm sure Montoya not very happy at all after that incident. It certainly looked as though Montoya gave Michael a bit of room off the grid, and I think that he will feel that Michael gave him absolutely no room at all as they headed down towards turn 4, that he already had a run going, and that Michael shut the door on him. But that discussion can continue for the moment. You have to say, after that, Michael drove superbly to take the victory here, his 4th win in Brazil. And time for the German national anthem to ring out. And now the Italian national anthem for Ferrari. The national anthem's played out and the Union flag being hoisted to half-mast as a mark of respect following the passing away of Queen Elizabeth, the Queen Mother, yesterday afternoon. The top three on the podium, and Michael Schumacher taking the 10 points and the trophy here at Interlagos. His brother alongside him, and David Coulthard coming home in third position. Great to see that he's finally got some points.
Yes, it's been a very, very difficult start to the season for David, but finally he's on the podium, 4 points. And the championship hopes that he said were dashed after Malaysia, well, he's still a long way to go, but you know, there are still many more races, 14 more in this year's 17 race championship.
Trophy to second place man Ralf Schumacher. Well, he tried, he fought, he put in some very quick laps towards the end of the race. He got within 0.4 of a second, but he never ever looked likely to get alongside that Ferrari. But David Coulthard drove hard all afternoon, stuck behind Jarno Trulli in the Renault for so long, fought past on the pit stops. Great work from the team as well. He'll be delighted with what they did in the pits. He did the job on the track and he's earned that third place. Bad news for Trulli, of course, but Jenson Button coming home in 4th position and Juan Pablo Montoya in 5th.
Ross, just stand there and enjoy it. You're a bit of a wine buff, so enjoy the champagne, the mum champagne, as Michael and Ross really enjoy the relationship between these two people. You know, it's just unbelievable. You rarely, rarely see partnerships in any sport or business quite like this one.
Well, we heard on the radio, John, when he was talking to Ross Brawn on that slowing down lap, he said he appreciated the amount of work the team had done. He knew how hard they'd had to work to get that 2002 car. He pushed for it to be here, and it's all been worthwhile.
And we saw just a quick glimpse of Jean Todt on a mobile telephone. One suspected he might be ringing up Luca de Montezemolo, the president of the Ferrari company, just to confirm what Luca will have seen on TV, and no doubt saying, you know, now we've done one race, one victory, we need that second car big time for Barcelona. For Imola.
For Imola, yes, that's right. Next time out. And David Coulthard doing a little samba shimmy up on the podium there. It's great to see a smile on his face at last. It's been such an awful start to the season for him, and at last a little relief, a little happiness for David, and perhaps he can now build on this as the teams come back to Europe for the real heart of the Grand Prix season, starting out at Imola in 2 weeks' time.
And indeed another racetrack which you've said throughout this weekend's broadcast which will favour BMW, Mercedes, or BMW particularly, Michelin tyres and the Williams chassis. I hope they managed to catch that Jeroboam of Champagne that might have cracked on the ground.
I think they did catch it. It was a pretty good catch, actually. Impressive stuff with a heavy bottle like that. But Michael just taking a few more moments to celebrate this victory with Ferrari. What a record he has here. And as we said, over the last 10 years, the winner of this race has normally gone on to win the championship. That's bad news for Williams. The last year it didn't happen, though. When David Coulthard won the race, Michael went on to win the championship, and it didn't happen back in 1993. And Williams will be hoping that they continue that particular trend. The characteristic jump onto the top step.
Yeah, Ben, that was a really, really tough physical race for both Schumachers, but Michael in particular, I feel. And he still has the energy, the vitality. Okay, he's got still pure adrenaline coursing through his veins, but nevertheless, the way he's able to spring and jump, I mean, it's a real joy to watch something. We're really probably watching history being made. Michael Schumacher, the only man with the potential to go on and equal the 5 world championships of the great Argentinian Juan Manuel Fangio, probably going to go on and continue winning race after race. I mean, how long can he go on? It's depressing. I think David Coulthard said, you know, please, Michael, go away and retire. Give us all a chance to get a bite of a world championship.
Well, today was just a pure example of how hard he can push throughout a race distance, and that's how he managed to win the race. As we have a quick look down into the pit garage, and the drivers are now making their way through to the press conference room. In fact, they've already made it there, so let's go over to the press conference and hear from them.
Congratulations, gentlemen. A fabulous Brazilian Grand Prix kept us on the edge of our seats right to the final lap. Victory to Michael Schumacher, Ralf Schumacher, second place, and David Coulthard in third place. Michael, the excitement started right on the run to the first corner between yourself and Juan Pablo Montoya. Can you talk us through what happened at the first corner, the second one, and the third? And did you suffer any damage from being hit by Juan Pablo going into turn 3?
First of all, no, obviously. I mean, my car was pretty much perfect until the end. We didn't suffer any little problem. It was an exciting first 2 corner, where I have to say Juan Pablo behaved really well. I mean, in order, I was thinking I could outbrake him in the first corner, but he was braking so late that it was clear that he would almost miss the corner. So I prepared then for turn 2, which then worked actually, and he just left enough space for both of us to go through the corner. And then I don't actually know what happened into turn 4. I moved over to the left to give him free the outside, and I didn't feel anything. I just suddenly saw him dropping back. So may you explain me what happened?
Now, towards the end of the race, you had your brother Ralf catching up with you. How hard did you have to fight? It really looked as though you were having to slide around quite a bit just to stay on the circuit.
No, it wasn't that bad, honestly. It was sort of after the pit stop when he was behind me. I knew it is only one possibility to overtake here, which is into turn 1. So I made sure that into the last corner everything was right, and there it looked obviously a little bit tricky because I was pushing hard into that corner. Into the rest I wasn't overdoing it because it is very easy, especially in the infield to make a little mistake on the braking. So it was just trying to roll the car more than fight compared to the first stint, which still means that I had to push, obviously, to keep him behind me. But I knew I couldn't go away from him, so there wasn't any need to try to drive away from him, just protect myself for non-overtaking, and that worked out.
Well, Michael, congratulations. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ralf, you had a fabulous battle last year in Canada with Michael. This one seemed to be even more intense, and though you came out second this time, did you enjoy it more or less?
Certainly I enjoyed it less because I'm second, but first stint wasn't too good. I wasn't too happy with the balance of the car, so we changed something on the pit stop, which made it a lot better, so I was able to catch Michael up. Even though I was maybe slightly quicker than he was, I was not able to come close enough to overtake him down the straight. So it was an exciting race. Do it next time.
Now, at the end of the race, what was the state of your tyres? Because I thought Michael looked like he was sliding a bit. He's told us that he was in control. Did you ever think there might be a chink that you could go through past Michael?
Yeah, well, that's why I kept behind him. I mean, even Michael sometimes, brakes a bit late, or, I mean, especially here, it's very easy to come offline and to lose a lot. So that's what I was waiting for. But he didn't do me that favor this time. He just simply, was better today.
Thank you very much, Ralf. David, good to see you here. Not only a finish to the race, but a podium finish.
Yeah, that's right. It's been a while since I've been here, because I haven't been here in any of the qualifying sessions this year either. And yeah, it's great feeling to be back on the podium. Quite a hard race, obviously, because the Renaults got past me at the start. And with Jensen, he made a mistake coming out the last corner, so I was able to slipstream him. But Jarno was a lot more difficult, and it was just a question of being patient for the pit stops.
You were pushing very hard right the way to the end, and in fact, in the closing laps, your lap speeds were pretty much the same as the two guys to your right. Does that mean the McLaren is really starting to make progress now?
Well, I think that our race pace is relatively closer than our qualifying pace, but that's the sort of classic situation. When your whole package isn't quite as strong, you tend to see the true colours of a car in qualifying, and it tends not to be such a big difference in the race. So I felt that we were going to be a little bit closer, but I don't think we're quite there yet. We've got a bit of work to do.
David, thank you. Back to you, Michael. Everyone said before this weekend that Interlagos would be a circuit where we'd see a Michelin victory. You turn up on your Bridgestones, you not only win the race, but you do it in the brand new Ferrari 2002. What chance Imola? Are you going to do the same again?
As you have seen, I mean, it has been a very tight race. We did it, certainly. Imola is another one where it's going to be a difficult one, I believe, from the experience we had last year, although we have improved. I mean, it wasn't a sort of luck that we won that race. It was worked hard for, because we had the new car here, because we had new Bridgestone tyres here, and altogether the package made us winning this race today. So I believe it doesn't look too bad then for Imola to look from what we saw last year. Nevertheless, we look forward to come to Imola, our home Grand Prix, and hopefully do something good there.
Thank you, Michael. Now, if Michael and Ralph would like to speak in their own languages, starting again with you.
Well, as ever, Michael sort of playing it down a little bit, and even getting a smile from his brother Ralph, I noticed there, when he was sort of playing down how hard he was pushing a little bit in the latter part. Even Ralph was smiling at him.
Yeah, that's for sure. Michael was pushing. I mean, he was on the limit, and he'd worked out, obviously, and the team had worked.
They respect each other, and I think that you're not going to see any kind of nonsense between those two. What I thought was quite funny was when Michael said, you know, my car was fine and it wasn't sliding around, and Ralph laughed because he clearly was right behind Michael, and he knows very well that Michael was trying as hard as he could, and he said it on the radio when he finished the race. That was a hard race. I think that Michael plays down any kind of weakness, and he builds up any strength. You know, he's made the point. He's coming with a brand new car, brand new Bridgestone tyres. Don't think you're going to walk all over us.
And David, I mean, he was third. Obviously, he'd like to have been slightly higher up the podium, but he's got to be happy with that after the starts of the season so far.
It's a nice result, but when you're finishing over 50 seconds behind the leading pair, then you know, you're kind of thinking, oh dear, sure, they pin the blame on Renault having the audacity to be in front of them for a while, maybe holding them up a bit, but you know, third is the best that they could hope to come home with this weekend, I think. So, you know, I was kind of thinking McLaren could get some points, or good solid points to come away. Obviously, I was slightly wrong on Pedro de la Rosa and Rubens Barrichello 3 stopping.
Yeah, but you have to be wrong
Bridgestones
once
didn't
in your
stand a
life.
chance, and the 2002 was too early. But apart from that,
you were perfect.
Yes.
Now then, it was a perfect day if you were Michael Schumacher. In fact, if you were any Schumacher, here are the highlights of the race. So Ferrari win the race, but Williams maintain their lead in the Constructors' Championship by 6 points from the Italian team. Here's Frank Williams.
Frank, in the points, but I guess a disappointing race from your point of view.
Yeah, we thought we could win with some difficulty, but we were beaten, and there's nothing to say about that. It was a good race, but I think it was an excellent race.
It was a great race. What were you thinking when that wing came off Juan Pablo's car on the first lap?
Unrepeatable, unspeakable, unmentionable.
Everybody said here that it was a Michelin circuit, it was going to be a Williams easy race. Bridgestone did a good job today, it appears.
Yes, the people who say that obviously don't understand how fast Formula One can change from weekend to weekend, which is the nature of the sport. And they did a super job, yeah, both tyre companies.
Well, congratulations, both cars in the points. Next race, Imola.
We're solid, we just need to keep building those constructors' points.
Thanks very much, Frank.
Difficult to say what if, but what if Juan Pablo Montoya had kept it together on that first lap?
No, we would have seen a very, very, very exciting race. I mean, you know, the feeling is still there that Montoya is a little bit more competitive, a little bit faster than Ralph, but I think we saw a superlative race today, and I think we saw two very, very we know there's no mistake that Michael is a very, very high quality driver, but we saw a race of the highest quality. I mean, and Michael and Ralph driving to the absolute limits.
Yeah, Williams came into this race, they wouldn't admit it, I can get any member of the team to admit it, as slight favourites after what had happened in the race before. Do you think they've lost ground now?
Yeah. To be quite honest, I think if they had a real good chance of beating the Ferrari 2002 car, it was here. Ferrari even admitted to themselves that Brazil was not their best track. That's why they took the risk of bringing it here now, you know, because they were expecting BMW Williams to beat them anyway, and they've turned around and taken the race.
Would you take a car if you were expected to be beaten? That's why you'd bring it.
Yeah, but it's a good reliability thing. They didn't think that the 2001 would be in the same league here as the Williams cars. So you might as well bring the 2002.
I think I understand what you're saying, because I think. Well, let me help you. Okay, what you're saying is, if they can win with that car and Brazil, then they're looking good for the championship. This was supposed to be a track that favoured a BMW engine and Michelin tyres, and they didn't win.
And it's as simple as that. Mind you, Frank said, you know, people who don't understand the sport don't understand that it can change from week to week.
Normally you would attribute the reaction to Michelin because, you know, that logistically they've got more benefits than Bridgestone have. They pop over to France, get the tyres built again, get them shipped back, whereas with Bridgestone they've got more of a problem. They've got to get it back to Japan. And even Bridgestone themselves have admitted that they've got more of a turnaround process involved in that. So the work they did in the recent Barcelona test with Ferrari obviously went very well there. You know, they must have struck gold there and then, because they wouldn't have had the time really to get back, manufacture new tyres and get those shipped over to Brazil. I wouldn't have thought.
Is there going to be a mental problem between the Schumacher brothers, or especially for Ralph, and that he's got to get past his brother? Same as everybody else, but he's got to get past his brother.
If I was Ralph, I'd go to see a psychiatrist and work out how the hell you're supposed to beat your brother, because I've not got a brother. I haven't got a brother, so I don't know what the relationship's like. But you know, how is Ralph? He's the younger brother, so he's always trying to overturn his elder brother. And what if he can't? You know, I think he's got to somehow change his mindset, because you could see in that race, he got close, but he didn't actually somehow overturn it. And he had a faster car because Montoya got the fastest lap time.
Luca Bador and Luciano Berti, but also either Rubens Barrichello or Michael Schumacher. The quest for perfection will continue.
It always does, that's right. It never ceases. And you can see, you might think that the mechanics might get a bit of time off after a race, wouldn't you, John? But it's even more busy as they now have to strip the cars down and pack them up in the crates to fly them back to Europe.
Yes, the cars will all go back into a fleet of 747 cargo jets. They'll return to their various destinations. In fact, I think they all return back to Amsterdam because of various security requirements these days. And then the teams will send their transporters over, pick the cars up, and then they'll return to base. They should be back at base in some cases by Tuesday, in other cases by Wednesday.
And then it's the question of getting the cars turned around, ready to go for the next race at Imola, the San Marino Grand Prix, another racetrack where we, as we talked earlier, would expect to see the Williams BMWs in good shape. They won there last year, Ralf Schumacher taking the victory on that occasion, and it's a lot about horsepower and getting through the chicanes quickly at Imola. We'll have to see, though. It's Italian ground as well, and Ferrari would love to take victory. Michael Schumacher has the advantage in the championship, and being in that position just gives him that little bit of control as to what's going on around him. Montoya will be so determined, though, to come back strongly at the San Marino Grand Prix.
Well, he must be beginning to think there's a bit of a prejudice, because the incident in Malaysia, he felt, well, he was unfairly treated in that, and no doubt Juan Pablo, when he gets out of the car, will be straight into Frank Williams and Patrick and Head and saying, look, I want to see what happened. And while it is not normal for a team like Williams to protest another team, they will certainly maybe draw it to the attention of the race director, deputy director, and also for the stewards to have a second look at. This could all be going on right now. We don't know what the stewards or the race director might be up to. And I would not be surprised to see that Juan Pablo and Michael are brought in to explain their relative positions on the track and what each other was doing. And it's not going to just stop here. We've seen a celebration on the podium and in the press conference, but believe me, there will be other words said behind closed doors, and no cameras or microphones around.
No, that's right. And of course, I think it's one of the reasons, John, they've introduced this new rule, is that in a way it takes the pressure off the stewards having to make a hasty decision in a race. I know one of the drivers were talking to us earlier about their reaction to the new rule. They're saying, well, you know, if you get a penalty, it should happen now in this race. But what that does, if you do that, it puts pressure on the stewards to make an instant decision. Sometimes that can be very hard in the heat of the moment. And with this new rule, at least they do have that time to sit down, contemplate, if you like, and then make their ruling.
Yeah, it's like being a child and doing something wrong, and your parents saying, I'm not going to spank you today, I'm going to spank you in 2 weeks' time. By the time 2 weeks' time comes around, you've forgotten what you've done wrong. Then you get all upset because you're getting hit for doing nothing, in your mind.
Of course, the other problem is what happens in the final Grand Prix of the year. If there's a battle going on for the championship, of course, if you take the other bloke off, then your penalty might not come until the start of the next season.
Well, it's not necessarily you taking somebody else off, it might be your teammate taking them off on your behalf.
Well, that could certainly open a can of worms, and we'll wait to see what happens with that. It's got to happen first before we can argue about it, but always plenty of potential for controversy in Formula One.
Just looking into the Renault pits and just trying to earwig on what Jenson Button was saying in an interview. He feels that maybe he had a little bit of a rear brake problem coming into turn 13. That's why he got slightly loose. David Coulthard explained that he saw Button getting slightly offline, the back of the car drifting, and that gave Coulthard the momentum. So Jenson feeling that the back end of the car may be just a little bit too nervous for him.
Well, it wasn't a particularly good day for the Arrows team, I'm afraid, on this occasion. We gathered that they had a suspension problem and they decided to withdraw the other car from the race. Very disappointing for them. Takuma Sato, meanwhile, talking to journalists and having the opportunity to tell his side of the story here today. He finished in 9th position, so at least he's got a finish under his belt. It was a little incident-filled, shall we say, but he had 2 stops, he got to the end of the race, and that is valuable mileage.
Yeah, so I mean, you're a Grand Prix driver, you set out to finish Grand Prix. We have had some entertainment from Takuma Sato so far in the first 3, but really he is there in the Jordan team to make a contribution to that team's future. And being, of course, a Japanese driver, in theory, doesn't do any harm in your relationship with Honda. But both Jordan and BAR are going to have to pull something out of the bag to really convince Honda that they are the future that both the teams should be going in.
Yes, running to supplying an engine to 2 teams as well, John. I mean, I wonder if Honda will continue to do that when they're up against it so much. They're seeing the success of Toyota in particular. Will they decide to continue that way of doing it?
Well, I'm sure that Toyota's success is hurting Honda very badly indeed. You know, in Japan, if you want to call it, loss of face is a major part of their culture, and Toyota coming in and not just as an engine supplier but actually a fully blown team, and in 3 races scoring twice in the points, and both BAR and Jordan failing to score points in any of the Grand Prix in 3 Grand Prix. Well, that is not going to be received very well in the boardrooms of Honda.
No, that's right. It's a bit of a disaster for them, there's no doubt about that. But that's what Formula One's all about, fluctuating fortunes of the top runners. Sometimes it goes right, but you've just got to keep working at it, keep focused, and try and perform next time out. Well, Imola will be the next race for us, and here on F1 Digital, of course, we'll be able to watch the entire weekend from the beginning of Friday free practice right through the Saturday free practice sessions the Saturday qualifying, the warm-up on Sunday morning, and of course the race on Sunday afternoon. Round 4 of the FIA Formula One World Championship, and let me tell you, there's no better place to watch it than here on F1 Digital. You've been with the winner riding on the track here this afternoon. You heard the radio communications between drivers and teams as things went wrong, and as things went right too, hearing Ross Brawn and Michael Schumacher thanking and congratulating each other at the end of a hard-fought victory for Schumacher on this occasion. We've seen it all, and it's almost better than being at the track. We have so much coverage to bring you, and we'll look forward to bringing it to you in 2 weeks' time from Imola. From Ben Edwards and John Watson on the Super Channel, goodbye for now.
I know, truly, they say it about lots of drivers, but there's quite often about him that, you know, he just needs a break or two, and he could prove himself to be amongst the quickest.
He keeps getting breaks, but not exactly where he wants them. Yeah, he's a very good racing driver. He's very, very good indeed. And as everybody has said, he's excellent in qualifying. That's why I feel it's a fantastic advantage. It's a great opportunity for Jenson to, you know, still compare himself against somebody who people believe is incredibly quick, and Jenson's coming out very well against that.
Yeah.
So his stock value is going well up at the moment.
You wonder with someone like Jarno, you know, what would happen if it all went well?
he'd be smiling from ear to ear, as they say. Now then, they were smiling from ear to ear in the Toyota pit after a great finish, 6th position for Mika Salo. Let's hear from him now.
Mika Salo, congratulations, another point for Toyota.
Yeah, it's another one. Yeah, it's car has been reliable all season. I finished all races so far and scored points in 2 of them, which is quite amazing for the new car. And the best thing about it is that it's still the same car we raced in Australia, so it can only get better now.
How did you feel the basic pace was? In the end, Michelin didn't seem to have that big an advantage.
In the end, it wasn't. I was getting a bit tired also. In the end, it was quite hard. My car was not perfectly balanced, so it was hard work. Hot weather and a not perfectly balanced car, so I was getting a bit tired in the end, and I had nobody to catch in the front. I just keeping Eddie behind me, so the pace was going down for me. I don't know how the other ones.
Many congratulations. Thanks, Mika.
Well done, Mika. But as we look to Imola, Michael said it's going to be a hard race, and, you know, blah blah blah. But he's got to be favourite again, hasn't he?
Now, yeah, yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. You know, it's only here that I felt that they might have a serious problem, but Imola, yeah.
But Frank's right. You know, Grand Prix racing changes, the complexion changes over the season, between 2 races. You know, in 2 weeks it could be different.
All right. Well, let's hope it is for anybody who isn't an out-and-out Ferrari fan. In the meantime, Brazil is finished and dispensed with for another year. The teams hit Europe in 2 weeks' time for San Marino, which isn't in Italy, but of course it is in Italy, and it's Ferrari's home race. If you can work that one out, enter our competition with an extra answer. Sky Sports 1 has a preview for that race at 7 o'clock on Thursday, the 11th of April. Then we're live and interactive with practice session 1 and 2 at 9:30 in the morning on Friday the 12th. Practice 3 and 4 is at 7:30 in the morning on Saturday, followed by qualifying at 11:30. Sunday has warm-up at 8 in the morning, and the race programme starts at 12 noon. Well, my thanks to Damon and to Perry, to Watty and Ben for the Super Channel commentary, and to Peter Windsor for his pit lane reports. We'll all be back for San Marino. Will the balance of power in F1 shift again?
problem, Enrique? The rear suspension is broken. What? The rear suspension is broken. The rear suspension. Okay. I don't know, there is a vibration.
Now, battle between the Renaults and
No, it's less, it's 8. You did a bloody good outlap as well to stay ahead of Massa. Come on. I didn't get it to first. 10-4. Rear right. Okay, leave the right rear off. Get the rest done.
Rubens, very bad luck. What happened?
Some hydraulic pressure. I just lost it. No gears, no drive, nothing.
Looked like a lot of fun before that. You were going very, very well. Easily past people.
Well, I was just flat out, just driving flat out. That's all I could do.
And were you on a 3-stop strategy?
No, on a 2.
Thanks a lot.
Olivier Paul, it's a disappointing finish to your weekend. Can you tell me what the problem was with your car?
Well, to be honest, I don't know really. We need to wait the car come back, but I think so is a gearbox problem or clutch problem. I don't know exactly, but something like that.
The Honda engine seemed to be lacking in power this weekend. Is that something you'll be addressing in between races?
Well, you know, we need to work really a lot to improve the car for a few next Grand Prix, to be honest, but everybody work hard. We need to wait and see. We need a patience, but anyway, we push hard.
Bad luck, thanks. Felipe Massa, a very disappointing end to your first home Grand Prix. It looked like you had it coming together with Alex Young. Is that what happened?
For me, something happened in the car, because in the beginning it was good. I was behind Nicky and my car was quite good in the beginning, but after it happened something. I don't know what's happened, but I couldn't do more good laps, and I came early to the pit and was like this. So would you like to finish the race? But race is like this.
But was it Alex that caused you to spin?
I don't know. So I was quite trouble in my car, and I think he braked too late and he crashed me.
Padlet. Thanks, Felipe.
Just going into the first corner, and he had his teammate Jensen Button right up with him. Pulled off a lot of smoke. Well, it was all too much. The engine, I think, had been failing for a lap or so. And he pulls off. Will be up in the 6th place. Button will be in 5th. Button being chased hard.
Ross Brawn, was that one a surprise?
A little bit. I mean, obviously we thought they were going to be very strong today, but yeah, the tyres were actually very, very good in the race, considering we thought it was our weak point. So the tyres are very good, and of course it was a new car. We're a bit anxious, but they came through. I have to go. I'm on the pit.
Fantastic, thanks.
Juan, another time, the big duel at the start. How did you see it?
How do I see it? You're meant to do one move. He did it. I went for the inside. He did another one and took my front wing off. You know, but probably because it's Michael, they're not going to do anything. Like always, you know. We touched in the first corner in Malaysia, and they give me a drive-through. It takes complete my front wing, doing 2 moves in the straight, and they don't do anything. So it's typical FIA.
You will have a chat together?
Not really. You know, he does that again, I won't lift.
Thanks. So what stopped your race?
Don't know.
Sorry for you.
Fai il punto adesso, lo fa dopo, no. D'accordo. Apri che vedi,
Thank you, Mike. Sorry, guys. Well done.
Monsieur. The bubble, you fan again?
Show me, please.
The bubble, leave the bubble alone. Leave the bubble alone. Leave the bubble. You right alone. Leave the bubble alone. Any place.
Thank you. Thank you, Michael. No, but we have a problem about football. And we are going to make new 100 people before, and we have to we work out something. Next race also very important. Thank you. No, I knew. Ron. Hast du ja gesagt. Heute ist der. Das ist das Besser.
Ascolta, attenzione. Cos'è che ha detto quello? Celebration.
Se dopo finish questa, eh? Dai, finish, Lidl. Non proprio. Sono potente.
Una potente. No, un moment. Sono i piloti, un attimino. Hey.
The track that I know I can drive the car well. At our present pace, I don't think we'll be the fact.
David, welcome back on the podium. So championship has just begun.
Yep, definitely. First points of the season. So very happy to finally score. It was obviously a little bit frustrating race to be stuck behind the Renaults for so many laps, but even if I hadn't been, I don't think I could have run the pace of Michael and Ralph. So third place was probably all we could hope for.
You think there will be some new opponents with Renault, or can you improve to beat them in the next races?
I think we still had the edge on them. They did a very good job in qualifying, there's absolutely no question. But I still think we had the edge in race pace.
Did you expect the new Ferrari that strong after yesterday's qualifying?
I think that they obviously didn't feel quite as comfortable with their tyres. I think they felt the Michelin was a better tyre, but they were surprised with the new Bridgestone in race performance. So I think Ferrari were probably quite surprised. Quite surprised today.
In what sector do you think McLaren has to improve to get really competitive?
Well, you know, it's a whole. You can't just pick one thing. So I think basically from when we leave the garage until we come back after the race, we need that whole sector to be quicker.
Thanks.
Well, the problem was on the rear suspension, rear wishbone. Something broken and I had to stop. It was the same problem that happened in the morning when I had my crash.
Could you explain us what happened at your crash also this morning at the end of the warm-up?
Well, I touched the curb a little bit and they reckon that suspension broke at that time. So I just went, I spun and I went to the wall.
Okay, thank you, Enrique.
In the last
second stint was fantastic.
Yes, because you start with your style. The mistake was to start.
And no, the second stint times are good. I mean, Jano, again. I'm going to get a drink.
Jensen. It's a good result for you today.
Thank you. No, it was a good result. It was a little bit more difficult than the last one. I had some problems on the first stint with the tyres blistering, and it was really, really difficult to drive on the first stint. I was losing time to Jarno and also the McLarens. But the second stint, we changed the car in the pit stop, the front wing, and it made a big difference. And you know, the second stint was a lot quicker. I was able to hold off one, which is fantastic.
You had to resist at the end of the race. Was it exciting, an exciting fight?
Yeah, I don't think I can I can't come away with good finishes without working hard for them, it looks like. But no, I was pushing hard until the end, and it was good. Fantastic.
Okay, thank you.
That wasn't too bad, lady, was it?
Thank you, Jensen. For your team, you are very, very consistent from the start of the season.
Yeah, this is much better than we ever dared to hope for. We have been very lucky to get the points, sure, but still, I think the car is working. We seem to have very little problem, and the team is working reasonably well for being so young. I'm really happy.
Did you especially work on the reliability of the car to finish a maximum of GPs?
Well, of course we are working on reliability, because if you want the result you have to finish this first, but and a lot of work have been going into the engine and so on, but still, I mean, the season is long, and we are a long way away from the front runners, so we have a lot of work to do still.
So, Mika, another point for you. Are you particularly happy?
Yeah, of course I'm happy. It was a good race. We had a really poor start. Our launch control is not the greatest, and I lost 4 positions before first corner. But after that, car was quick all the time and very consistent and reliable, no problems. And it was good, the race. A lot of overtaking and
consistency and reliability are the main qualities of your car?
Yeah, it seems to be good, so I have no complaints about anything at the moment. And best thing about this is that the car is still the same what we raced in Australia. We have not one new part on it. So for Imola, which is next race, we will have some new parts and should be better.
Okay, thank you. So, Gerard, any comment about this race?
Well, a great race, no question. After qualifying, we saw already they're going to be very difficult with Ferrari. It was a difficult race. Unfortunately, it went the other way around. But to be second and fifth is a good result.
What do you think about what happened in the first lap between Juan Pablo and Michael?
Well, I think Michael shouldn't pass us on the first corner. The problem starts there. I think he shouldn't be able to get through this hole. Then, of course, was all a consequence. But I wouldn't like to comment it more.
Have you been impressed by the performance of the new Ferrari?
No, I think that's what I was expecting for. I mean, yeah, okay, their ability, they could finish the race, that's great. But no, I was expecting what they did. No question, would be strange, it would be different. I was a bit impressed by the Bridgestone tire, they did well. I was expecting that they could be struggling a bit more under these conditions, but again, I mean, we are fighting against a world championship leader, and you have to expect that they know what they are doing.
Okay, thank you.
Are you then a little bit disappointed about? Well, that's something where you.
Not here, please. Just back. We're going to take one for everybody, so just make sure you're
2 minutes. 2 minutes, everybody at the same time.
Juan Pablo, that all went wrong for you on the opening lap, didn't it?
Well, what can I say, you know? The engine broke down in the start. He was beside me. You know, I gave him room around the first 2 corners. It's a bit disappointing because, you know, I thought he was a fair guy to race with, but he's definitely not. In the way that he came down to the middle of the racetrack, I went to the inside. I made my move before him, and I was behind him. And after I made my move, he shut the door. As soon as he came in front of me, my rear one, you know, was starting already was hanging. So he showed, you know, had enough speed to pass him there, and you know, just react a bit. He reacted later than me, and it's just very disappointing.
Bearing in mind what happened 2 weeks ago, it must make you even more angry.
Yeah, you know, last week, theoretically, I took his front wing. Even I gave him room,
and I got penalized. This week, he shuts the door in front of me the same way, maybe the same way Rubens moved and Ralph the ribs before. Even, I was even closer. And here we go. Who pays? I pay again, and it just keeps going.
Tell us about your fight back through to fifth.
It was okay. The car was working really well. It was, it's been quick all weekend, and I know I actually took some time off Michael, so, I had enough, speed to win the race.
Did you have a problem at the start?
Yeah, the engine broke down, and I decided not to do a Michael Schumacher to come across and chop him. See ya.
Thanks very much. Okay, thank you, Juan.
So David, another hard event for you today.
Yeah, very disappointing, especially when you've only got one lap to go, albeit, fighting for 8th place, but nonetheless, disappointing.
You have to work on the performance, but on the reliability as well.
Yeah, there's every aspect we have to work on. It's clearly a lot of issues to tackle.
Okay, thank you, David.
So bad because if you feel, I had so many problems yesterday, I would have qualified a little bit better, but it is the third race that we can almost say that I retired from leading. So it's really a pity because I'm giving my best. I'm determined to win. I'm in a good mood. I'm driving as fast as I can, better than ever before. I have the old car. I had to try something different. I was on a 2-stop, but anyway, I was overtaking people on a good pace. So unfortunately, I have to come back next year and try again.
The crowd went wild when you took the lead. Could you see that?
Well, I was having not a lot of spare moments, but I was just having a look, and it was fantastic. It's just really a pity and silly again just to walk all through the last corner back home. But at least I have I'm looking forward. I'm disappointed, but there's nothing more I could do.
Rubens, the mechanics gave you a big hand when you came back into the pits. So do we.
Yeah,
really?
It's a pity. I was, a lot of people here knows how much I give it. By my heart and by my feelings, by everything. I give everything I can to win at home, but to win everywhere, really. And there's a little bit of bad luck this start of the season, but who knows? The luck is going to change soon. Pretty soon has to change.
Michael said after qualifying it would be very difficult to get you into a front position. But you went so fast. So what was the plan?
Well, the plan was to stop one more time than Michael, but it was. We had to try something different for me to be able to go to the front, but it was looking good because if you see how much truly is behind Ralph, at least I will be fighting for a position on the podium. So I was looking quite good.
Third race in a row, not even 1 point and out in the lead. So do you trust him out anymore?
I trust him. He's gonna give me a good time for the future. There's no way I have my feet on the ground. I keep determined. It's very, very easy on this situation to lose motivation, but I'm motivated. Next race I'll have the new car, and maybe my season starts then.
Thank you.
Rubens, please, what happened exactly? Why did you retire?
I had a hydraulic problem. It looks like it. I lost drive. I lost gears. I lost the throttle. So no way.
You were very fast at the start of the race. What was your strategy?
We were on a 2-stop. We were fighting to overtake a lot of people and then to keep on going. It was working. It was really working.
Bad luck this year and bad luck here in Brazil.
Yeah, but the only way is to look forward. There's no way we can look back now and say, oh, it's a shame. It happened. So next time.
Thank you, Rubens.
I was enjoying the race. We had a good fight with the other guys, and unfortunately, it was only a limited time. So that's it. Thank you.
Heinz Harald, hi. What's happened exactly for you?
We had a rear suspension failure.
Disappointment, of course.
Yes, up to there was a good race. Thank you.
So can you explain us what happened? Why did you retire?
First of all, I had a problem with the launch control, and I did the start with a manual. And then I lost a few positions for that problem. And then there was an accident in front of me, and I damaged the front nose with the carbon face of other people. After that, I stopped for to change the front nose, and then when I went through the race, engine blew up.
That's not a good GP for you, not a good start for this season.
No, not at all. It's the third race without points. That's no good for us.
You're waiting for evolutions on the car?
Oh yes, of course.
At the end of the day, it happens like things like this happen for racing drivers. It happened to me already 3 times this year, but I was leading when it happened. So you know, when the wheel of fortune changes, I'll be ready.
In a row, congratulations. What can we say?
Yeah, this one's a little bit different, but cheers. Thanks. But no, it's fantastic for the team to get a result like this, and you know, 2 fourth places in a row. We're there, man. We're going to be fighting for some good points this season, and hopefully we'll be fighting with the red and white cars before long.
You said it was a little bit different. What was so different for you, according to the last race?
Well, I was in third in the last race.
But that wasn't all.
No, exactly. But this race is going really well. We were racing with the McLarens, and I had a bit of a problem on the first stint. I had a lot of oversteer, but we fixed that in the pit stops, and yeah, we're going well. Cheers.
I'm a winner.
But I'm a bit pissed off, you know. We need a bit more consistency in the way they call the things.
Why didn't he get a penalty now?
I don't know. You should ask the FIA.
So then, win in Brazil, you go on to win the championship. That's been the trend anyway. And Michael Schumacher, top man once again in Brazil. Schumacher, 10 out of 10. Ralf Schumacher, he's never been on the Interlagos podium before. First points of the year at last for Coulthard. Button 4th, same as last time in Malaysia. Montoya salvages a couple of points. And Mika Salo nipping in to score for Toyota, and just 12 finished.
Everybody was sort of expecting us for a 2-stop, and we sort of changed that and decided to go for a 1-stop, which I thought was a perfect decision. But it only was a perfect decision because we had a good car and we had good tyres. Otherwise, whatever strategy you do, it doesn't work.
And because you could make the lap times.
Well, but that's my job. I mean,
certainly I was expecting to be on a 2-stop, especially after the start he did and the first few laps where he pulled away. And then I saw Rubens coming up behind me, and I was a bit worried. They proved that I did a lot of work over the weekend. The tyre was capable of doing the 1-stop, and I was just slightly better, but really only marginally better. And considering that is the new F2002, which we all were so worried about, I think is not looking too bad for us.
Just need more pace, don't we? You know, clearly we lost time behind the Renaults, but even if we hadn't been there, we just don't have the overall pace. So got to just keep working, and you know, we know we've got some things in the pipeline. It's just going to be patience is required.
It's a bit disappointing because, you know, I thought he was a fair guy to race with, but he's definitely not. In the way that he came down to the middle of the racetrack, I went to the inside. I made my move before him, and I was behind him. And after I made my move, he shut the door. As soon as he came in front of me, my rear one, you know, was already was hanging. So he showed, you know, had enough speed to pass him there, and you know, just react a bit. He reacted later than me, and it's just very disappointing.
I don't think it is really important what he says in this moment. You all know that racing drivers sort of have a initial reaction on something when they see maybe the video. They see it differently, and you guys, you've seen that 20 times probably. Myself, I haven't seen it at all. I know I moved over to the left quite far before the braking, and he must have touched me at some stage.
That's fantastic to get 3 points more for the team. Just a pity about Jarno really having his whatever problem he did, but we were giving good pace, I think, to the McLarens. We weren't far off them, and now I'm really happy with it. It's fantastic. Cheers.
Well, reliability's good. Both cars finished, which is great. I had a bit of a scare in the middle of the race where there was too much oil in the engine. It was misfiring and throwing out lots of smoke. So I thought it was about to go bang, but it was just too much oil in the tank. So that was good. But it's a shame we couldn't have got sixth. But the Toyota just were better than us today.
It was tough. I mean, it wasn't an easy win, but I wasn't quite so sure we'd be as competitive as we were. But the new car was fantastic, and it was a relief to see it over the finish line, because of course with a new car you don't know as well as the old one. It was ironically the old one that failed today, the new one that ran perfectly till the end.
And so that means an 8-point gap separates the Schumacher brothers. Montoya on their heels, then Button, Raikkonen. Good to see David Coulthard up there as well. Williams still lead the constructors. It's already a two-team battle. McLaren a couple ahead of Renault, and off that caption, Arrows, British American Racing and Jordan all yet to get off the mark. Who got off the mark best at the start? Not Montoya, unfortunately.
Well, the two hard men of Formula One were trying to go off the grid, but it was a copycat move by Montoya on Michael Schumacher, trying to give him the shoey chop there, but he didn't finish the move. Then he ran wide, and Schumacher goes back inside him at the same place where Montoya passed him a year ago to take the lead of the Grand Prix. But there is this respect and space left. I think they're thinking about, you know, the 10-place penalty that you can get trying to behave. But Schumacher moves across to block the move by Montoya on the inside, and they touch. And there, look, you can see this, where he touches just the rear. Now the front wing folds underneath the left front. Air goes out of the tyre. Montoya goes to the back of the field.
Did so well to recover from that. What did you make of the Renault-McLaren scrap involving Jenson Button and David Coulthard?
One, it was the battle of the Brits, and two, it's the battle of the manufacturers, because Renault have said our next target is McLaren Mercedes. Not today it wasn't, despite their resurgent form. Reliability was what McLaren were looking for, and this was David Coulthard going inside Jenson Button to take 5th place at the time, but they ended up Coulthard 3rd, Button 4th. Tremendous, but Button's ahead of him in the championship standings.
Crucial pit stop for Michael Schumacher. He went 39 laps, and they had to get all sorts of rubbish out of it.
They did. Now just look at the man on the radio there. He's furrowing away there. He's digging deep into the radio. He's still working while the fuel nozzle man is still putting in that fuel. Quite a long stop by Ferrari standards, so clearly a lot in there. Clearly some higher temperatures. In the meantime, Ralph has been out and gone into the lead for 4 laps, tried to get his hammer down, come in for his pit stop. Was it enough? 9.4, looking good at that moment. Then the camera showed us Michael Schumacher coming past his brother, retaking the lead of the Brazilian Grand Prix. And then it was the brothers in that grim fight to the finish.
Is it up there? I mean, can Ralph ever look to get past Michael?
He's got to try and do that, Jim, but you've got to remember his older brother is his mentor, his teacher, and everything. It's very, very difficult. You see here, he chased him, he harried him, he got caught behind the slipstream of this efficient, beautiful new Ferrari, which wins, maiden win for Ferrari like this. Ralph's got a hope, you know, there's Pele.
The race finishing? Oh, there they go.
There they go. He was chatting to the blokes behind. It doesn't matter. What a great race he saw, and what a great race for the Brazilians. Ralph's got to have a good go in San Marino in 2 weeks' time.
And that is where we go as well, of course, to Imola for the San Marino Grand Prix, qualifying live on the Saturday from 11:30, pre-race show from just after midday on Sunday, and highlights at 11:45. And Michael Schumacher leading the pack as Ferrari head for home territory. Ralph didn't quite manage it today in Brazil, but don't forget he won last time out at Imola. Good night.